Chapter 537. Inside the suppressing martial camp, Sun Lang and Qian Yuanshuang were discussing their grand plan. The two of them observed for a while, laughing sinisterly from time to time. It was very discordant. After the secret meeting came to an end, General Qian wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and shifted his but slightly away from Sun Lang. He looked at his uncle with an unusually frightened gaze. Sun Lang said unhappily, "What's with that look of yours? It's really too sinister." He noticed Sun Lang's murderous aura and immediately corrected himself. "Brilliant. It's really too brilliant. Old uncle, this plan of yours is truly flawless and flawless. In your words, it's unbelievably stable. I actually didn't find a single flaw. It'll definitely be a great success and force Empress into a corner. Then he'll obediently give in." He gave a thumbs up and praised. "You're worthy of being the man that even my father was convinced by. You're able to devise strategies and win with just a few words." Thinking back to old uncle's charm back then, how peerless was it? "Aya, nephew Gu, this world is dangerous. Don't be so frank with your words. It'll be easy for you to be taken advantage of in the future," Sun Lang said with a smile. "But you can be more honest in front of your uncle." General Qian smiled and nodded in agreement, but he was cursing in his heart. "Damn it, if I'm not so frank with my words, I'll be taken advantage of right now, let alone in the future. Damn it, no wonder father always has that expression when he talks about the past with you," Sun Lang said again. "Since we've finished discussing, then it's settled. I'll go visit the other nephews now. Let's get together and make a big move." Qian Yuanshuang's heart skipped a beat. He reached out and pulled Sun Lang. "Uncle, wait. Sun Lang frowned. "What's the matter?" Nephew Gu hesitated for a moment before saying, "Uncle, I'll say it one last time. Instructor Lin and class leader Shui, what are your plans? I don't know why you don't want to see them, but..." Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "Children don't understand adult matters. Don't get involved," Qian Yuan Shuang blurted out. "My son already knows how to call him father. Last year, he married his third concubine and started a family. How can he be considered a child?" He hadn't finished speaking when the hairs on his entire body stood on end, and he seemed to have sensed a wisp of extremely dense killing intent. However, this murderous aura instantly disappeared without a trace, as if it was an illusion. He looked left and right in confusion. "I seem to have felt something just now. Eldest nephew, I say, eldest nephew." Sun Lang suddenly laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "You are very fickle. You are actually so unrestrained. You have a son and even married a concubine. You're a real man. If you have the ability, you should marry a few more. If you don't, you should marry a few fewer. If you like them, you should marry them. Is there a problem?" Qian Yuan Shuang blinked his eyes and said blankly, "Uncle, what are you talking about?" Sun Lang's smile became even brighter. He patted Qian Yuan Shuang's shoulder hard and said, "Sai, you are still too young. Sometimes you are very childish. However, I can't blame you. I only understood this in the past 2 years. The harem is too big. It's not worth it." Qian Yuan Shuang stuttered. Harem? Come, let's give a very typical example. For example, otakus are the most heartless group in the world. Today, Ikaros is my wife. Tomorrow, it will be Kurumi. The day after tomorrow, it will be Kana. Now, even Kana is past her prime, so will be Yafu. That's really shameless. Who are those people? Then here comes the problem. This otaku has so many true loves. He is always saying that he wants to be born in the 2D world. If one day, the will of the universe takes a liking to him, and a piece of two-directional foil reduces him to the 2D world, then he will be guilty of having so many true loves. Sun Lang said mysteriously, "Think about it. When he is in the 2D world, he has so many wives to fight for. Who should he give them to? The will of the universe can only cut him up with a hatchet and divide him among them. I think this is really..." Qian Yuan Shuang was very confused. He didn't have any thoughts at all. He said blankly, and then, isn't it obvious?" Sun Lang raised a finger. "The lesson at the end is that if you have too many wives, it may lead to an azura field." Nephew Gu was dumbfounded. What is a shiraba? You are from Mars, right? You don't even know what a shiraba is. Sun Lang explained. The so-called shiraba is when your girlfriends hold a hatchet and hack at each other. Then, they will dismember you. Can't you just say that there's a fire in your backyard? Qian Yuan Shuang finally understood. Then he said in confusion, but even Tinlin Daiyu and Shweb Baochai can't beat you. What are you afraid of? Sun Lang was stunned. That's true. Bullsh asterisk T. He jumped up and slapped him. Your martial arts are no weaker than Sister Bao's. If she comes, can you help me block her for a few rounds? Qian Yuan Shuang couldn't help but shudder. He finally understood. Uncle, you are guilty. Then he was slapped again. Guilty my asterisk guess. This is protecting them. No matter what, Nephew Gu was an adult with a family and a career. After being slapped a few times, he was dissatisfied and couldn't help but retort. You're obviously guilty. I also love my wife and concubines very much, but normally, I have to have the dignity of a man. No matter if they bicker with each other or throw a tantrum at me, I just have to glare at them and cough, and I guarantee that they will all be obedient. This is how the head of the family should be. Sun Lang was furious. He slapped him again and said, Io, how dare you talk back to your uncle? Qian Yuan Shuang hugged his head and retorted, How is this talking back? You are so afraid of General Shui. You must be guilty. Sun Lang said angrily, Who says I'm afraid? What can she do to me? I'm standing right here. Can she chop me up? Let me tell you, there are no men who are afraid of their wives. There are only men who respect their wives. Nephew Gu was just about to say something when he heard hurried footsteps outside. Someone shouted from outside the tent. Reporting to General Qian, General Shui from Tianxiong Town is here to pay her respects. Sun Lang leaned against the wall of the tent with a swish. Qian Yuan Shuang looked at his uncle quietly. Sun Lang listened for a moment and revealed a gentle smile. Aha! Where did she come from? Isn't there only one person here? What are you looking at? How's your uncle's qigong? Nephew Gu gave up on the idea of teasing him under the threat of his uncle's eyes. He asked, Where is General Shui? The person outside didn't say anything. In the next moment, Sun Lang's expression changed, and he rushed out of the tent. But it was too late. A sharp sound broke through the air as a signal flare shot into the sky. Sun Lang kicked the messenger away and extinguished the flare with a wave of his hand. But it was too late. Shui Baochai looked in the direction of the signal flare from the observation deck of the dispatch center, not far from the suppressing military camp. A sharp glint flashed across her eyes as she immediately jumped down. After a few leaps, she mounted her warhorse and raised her Fangtian halberd before shouting, Target, suppressing military camp. Quick, quick, quick. This was a scheme she and Empress had conspired together. Even if one were to pick out 7 or 8 of the unconscious generals who were close to Sun Lang, they wouldn't be able to locate Sun Lang's position immediately. Therefore, several messengers were sent out to bring the secret orders and signal flares from the Middle Army to these people's tents. With the Emperor's concubines' secret orders, the guards couldn't stop them. The messengers rushed in and loudly asked for Shui Baochai's permission to see them. If they received a direct reply from the general, they would immediately send out the signal. Because these generals were all injured and unconscious, according to the doctor's diagnosis, they would need to rest for at least a night before they could wake up naturally. If they woke up midway, then someone must have woken them up. If multiple generals woke up, then they would be eliminated according to the order of the list and intercepted. But now it seemed that the heavens had eyes. Sun Lang also understood the cause and effect and immediately turned to run. Qian Yuanshuang rushed out and shouted, Uncle! Sun Lang turned back and shouted, Nephew Gu, I'll leave everything to you. You must stop her. At this point, even Nephew Gu was starting to panic. Uncle, wait. I'm scared too. If you dare rat me out, I'll give you a canned herring enema later. After leaving behind these cruel threats, Sun Lang turned tail and ran. Fuck. That bastard woman. She dared to set me up. Undoubtedly, this was Empress's doing. Just you wait. This time, I won't stop until I've squeezed out 3 caddies of girl juice for you. He swore in his heart, But the most important thing to do now was undoubtedly to run. No matter what, it was right to be scared first. It wouldn't be too late to slowly settle the score later. But he had just taken a few steps when something strange happened. A fire suddenly erupted in front of him as a group of people surrounded a general charged over. That general was wearing heavy armor, wearing a tiger's mask, holding a snake spear, and riding a snow-treading ebony steed. Who else could it be other than Lin Daiyu? There were words and leaves before and reasons behind. Motherf Kerr, the Azura arena had inadvertently and cruelly descended, and from the very beginning was a double hellish difficulty. The shock and swearing in Sun Lang's heart was simply indescribable. He decisively turned to another path and ran for his life. Motherf Kerr, Motherf Kerr, Motherf Kerr. After the shock, there was anger. Anger that gnashed his teeth. That woman dared to use such a vicious trick on me. Do you think you've already won? Do you think you can escape unscathed? You sent Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai to block me. Do you think you can stay out of this? Anger rose in his heart, and evil grew in his guts. Sun Lang's eyes flashed with a fierce light as he immediately turned and charged towards the command tent. I won't let you have it easy, you bastard. Along the way, Sun Lang's anger turned into strength, and the camp welcomed a second wave of chaos. All those who stood in his way were knocked to the ground in an instant. This time, Sun Lang did not have the burden of Arkham Squadron, and he even had a buff. He rushed to the main tent like a gust of wind and tore open the tent door. The Emperor's concubine sat on the main seat. She wore heavy armor and a golden helmet that covered her entire body. Tianyuan Blade was beside her. Sun Lang let out a ferocious laugh as he strode over. Do you think wearing armor is useful? It's useless. It's useless. Today I will definitely make you. The Emperor's concubine suddenly stood up. Very quickly, she took off the golden helmet on her head. The face hidden under the helmet was revealed. Her eyebrows seemed to be furrowed, and her bright eyes seemed to be crying. Her appearance was as beautiful as a flower in the water, and her temperament was cold and elegant like a fairy. No one would have thought that under the mighty armor was such a beautiful woman who looked weak, cold, and stubborn. She made people feel pity for her at first sight. But this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that this woman wearing Empress armor was an Empress herself. Her surname was Lin. Her name was Daiyu, the leader of Soaring Eagle Corps, the heroine of Tianyuan. Because she wore a tiger and leopard mask on the battlefield, she was brave and fierce, not inferior to men, and was nicknamed Leopard Head. Lin Daiyu, known as the invincible Lin Daiyu. At this moment, the girl's eyes were fixed on Sun Lang, as if she had forgotten the passage of time. What an impactful scene this was. The reunion of a young man and a young woman. They were blood relatives. They were betrothed before they were born. They met for the first time in the army. They fought on the sword. They parted on the battlefield. It was inevitable that a general would die in battle. But now they were reunited, not in the next life, but in this life. It was like a dream. Lin Daiyu's lips trembled. She wanted to say something, but couldn't. All of a sudden, cries of terror rang out in the central tent. It's not me. Chapter 538. Sun Lang, the former chairman of the Central Military Commission, the former marshal of the world's armed forces, the martial arts hall's sword pavilion army commander, the pillar of the state general, and the special minister of light. He once commanded the 6 armies and controlled the Tianyuan military. His achievements were unparalleled, and he was half a disciple of Zhu Zi. And today, he was humiliated. It could be said that it was very humiliating. In his military years, he had never been so humiliated. But this was not his fault. It was really an open and covert attack. It was impossible to guard against, and he had no chance of winning. After all, his opponents were the 2 women who knew him the best in the world, and they were also the 2 smartest women, Shui Baochai and Empress. These 2 despicable women had taken advantage of his innocence and kindness, and had mercilessly set up such a vicious scheme. They had calculated all of his actions and arranged such a hateful trap. They actually set up such a trap to force me out. They actually surrounded me and intercepted me, forcing me to flee in a sorry state. They even colluded with Sister Lin and waited for me here. They wanted me to walk right into their trap. Hateful. It turned out that even Sun Lang, the marshal, when encountering such a special situation like the Azura field, his IQ could not help but quickly turn into Akuya. As a result, he fell into Shue Baochai and Empress's scheme. His every move was within the expectations of these two women. Whether it was a guilty conscience, running away, venting his anger on Empress, or walking right into their trap, it could be said that this person's character and characteristics had been firmly grasped by these two women. There was no mistake at all. Hateful, aha! At this moment, Sun Lang had already figured out the cause and effect and found the culprit. He also drew up all the revenge strategies while he was at it. But it was completely useless, because the greatest danger was right in front of him. I actually started to pity Qin Hui and Xiong Er. They must have felt the same way at that time. Sun Lang, who had inexplicably gained empathy, felt his heart pounding. He was panicking. He looked at Sister Lin opposite him, and thousands of words converged into one sentence. It's not me. Lin Daiyu was stunned by his words. Without another word, Sun Lang turned around and ran. Younger Sister Lin was shocked and cried out involuntarily, "Don't go." Sun Lang turned his head and said sternly, "Don't chase." His voice was so firm and stern that Lin Daiyu was startled and subconsciously said, "Oh." However, she quickly reacted and threw the golden helmet in her hand to the side. She rushed out and shouted, "Brother, don't go. Where have you been for the past 2 years?" Sun Lang didn't even turn his head as he roared, "Creator space." How could Lin Daiyu let him run away? She chased after him and shouted, "Where are you going?" Sun Lang's voice was filled with infinite grief, indignation, and regret. "Go find a time machine." Ah! Not far ahead, Shue Baochai came with the sky halberd in her hand and shouted, "Husband, don't go. We are husband and wife. We share honor and disgrace. We share everything." Sun Lang immediately turned around and shouted, "I don't believe it. You must want to chop me to death with a hatchet." Shue Baochai was angry and amused at the same time. She shouted, "No, then you should make a written pledge first." Shue Baochai urged the war horse and was relieved in her heart. He still spoke so casually. It seemed that he was no doubt her husband. She shouted, "Not to mention a written pledge. We can even make a poison oath." "Husband, stop for a moment." Sun Lang shouted in grief and indignation, "I don't want to, unless you tell me where that woman is first." Since the one wearing Empress's armor and waiting for him to walk in the trap was Lin Daiyu, then the one wearing younger Sister Lin's armor was most likely Empress. This guy must pay the price. Ah! Shue Baochai was stunned at first, and then she said awkwardly, "With her intelligence, why would she stay in the same place and wait for you to come to her after she succeeded? She must have hidden in the dark." Sun Lang thought about it, and then said angrily, "Damn it. Ah!" Normally, even if this woman could hide, it would be easy for him to find her with his ability. However, at this time, Baochai was in front, Daiyu was behind, and the hell-level Azura field was about to be triggered. It was an impossible task to complete the search under such dangerous external conditions. Sun Lang flew into a rage. He felt extremely humiliated. This woman was so despicable and vicious. She had actually thought so far ahead and schemed to such an extent. She was simply a scheming bitch, a scheming bitch, a scheming bitch. In a secret place in the camp, Empress took off the tiger leopard mask and put the snake spear aside. She observed the movement here and laughed loudly. She laughed very happily and was extremely happy. Looking at Sun Lang's stupid and battered appearance, it really made her feel refreshed. "Are you happy or not? Sun Lang, you also have a day like this." When Lu Yiwu heard the Emperor's concubine's wild laughter, he felt a bit of fear in his heart. It seemed that the marshal had finally fallen into the trap and was blocked by his two wives. Moreover, he looked very panicked. The Emperor's concubine's plan could be said to be a great success. But it was just as he was worried. Even if the marshal fell into the trap and was blocked by his wives, he would at most kneel on the washboard and be punched twice in the chest. Then nothing would happen. Then what? A person like him would not be able to swallow this and would definitely wait for an opportunity to retaliate. Smelling the foul smell in the camp that had not completely dissipated, he became more and more panicked. Lu Kanjun said cautiously, "Your Highness, you." Her Highness seemed to be in a good mood and said with a smile, "Kanjun Lu, do you want to ask me why I am laughing?" "Ha ha ha ha. Of course it's because I am laughing at Sun Lang's stupid appearance." This bastard boasted that his intelligence was unparalleled in the world, but now it seems that he is only SOSO. What has he been doing these 2 years? It's completely impossible. Look at his stupid and panicked appearance. He must be furious right now and wants to find me. But how can I let him catch me? I have already expected his actions. How can he find me? How can he find me? How can he find me? These 3 heroic and magnificent rhetorical questions showed the unshakable determination of Her Highness Empress and the joy of revenge. It could be said that it was very domineering. But the next moment, Lu Kanjun, who had been standing on tiptoe to observe the situation, suddenly said, "Your Highness," that person shook off Lin Dayu and ran to the main tent. Empress sneered. "Ran to the main tent? Oh, could it be that he thinks I'm hiding in the middle of the tent while he thinks I'm hiding in the middle of the tent? Idiot. If you can think of it, I naturally know you can think of it. So how can I let you think of it? There is nothing in the main tent. Wait, there was another thing in the main tent." In order to dispel Sun Lang's suspicions, she put the Tianyuan blade there. Tianyuan blade. Empress's expression suddenly changed as she said in shock, "Not good." Before Lu Kanjun could ask what was wrong, a light flashed in front of his eyes. Empress's body suddenly released a dazzling golden light, as if something was forcefully resonating with her. In the distance, a crazy roar sounded. "Oh, oh, 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 over there, you bastard." The main tent suddenly collapsed. Lu Kanjun only saw a terrifying figure rushing over with a Tianyuan blade in his hand. This was the imperial army that His Majesty had bestowed upon General Tensei. Empress's expression wildly changed as she immediately jumped on her horse and ran away. The elite inner guards by her side were worthy of being the Empress concubine's personal guards. When they saw the Empress concubine retreat, they immediately turned and ran without another word. In an instant, they swarmed over. Only the stunned Lu Kanjun was left standing there with a dumbfounded expression. The killing intent came from afar and arrived in an instant. He could even see the killing intent on Sun Lang's face that said, "My little Doryman is going to F***CK you up today." Facing Sun Lang, who was rushing over, Lu Kanjun panicked and didn't know where to go. In his panic, he didn't even think before he blurted out, "It wasn't me." Sun Lang stared blankly for a moment before he bellowed furiously, "How dare a dog like you mock me?" "I didn't." Lu Kanjun, who had no idea what was going on and why Sun Lang was angry, did not even have the time to beg for mercy before he was submerged in Sun Lang's no burden fists. Once again, he was sent flying with a wild goose landing flat sand style. Empress was running away frantically. As she ran, she shouted, "Protect me! Protect the Emperor!" However, just as Sun Lang couldn't do anything to Lin Shui and Lin Shui, she couldn't do anything to Sun Lang either. Sounds of fighting came from behind her. There were people constantly screaming, people constantly flying out, and people constantly being knocked down. However, Sun Lang's voice was getting closer and closer. No one could stop it. Roar, roar, roar. He, ha, ha, ha. Sun Lang's strange laughter was getting closer and closer. Cry, scream, and then dehydrate me. I'm going to F***King, make you cry today. As the Empress concubine ran, she roared, "You should think about how to deal with your wife." Sun Lang, stop right now. I'll help you say a few good words, and we'll let this matter go. Let's sit down and talk about business. This time, we'll consider a draw. Next time, we'll use our methods regardless of life or death. How about it? What the F***CK? Sun Lang shouted, "You're so shameless. After doing this kind of thing, you still want to escape unscathed? Get over here." The Tianyuan saber in his hand let out a fierce dragon roar. In an instant, it shone brightly. The golden saber chi was everywhere. When the guards around Empress saw that the Tianyuan saber was so powerful in the hands of this thief, they were all shocked. This moment of distraction had already determined the outcome of the battle. If it weren't for Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai chasing after them, Sun Lang was afraid that they would be in trouble. This saber was enough to kill the guards around Empress instantly. The king's imperial blade, which was made by the famous craftsman of the Ministry of Imperial Finances, was not a joke. It was originally the imperial weapon of an emperor. With the Tianyuan saber in one hand, Sun Lang had already rushed to Empress's side. He stretched out his hand, pulled her down from the horse, and shouted, "Be good friends with me." Chapter 539. After Empress was caught by Sun Lang, she immediately counterattacked with her elbow. She raised her true chi and tried to struggle, but it was completely useless, completely useless, completely useless. After all, her kung fu was much worse than Sun Lang's. Moreover, Sun Lang was very powerful at this time. He inserted the Tianyuan blade to the side, blocked the elbow with his left hand, and raised his right hand. Empress could not help but turn around. Sun Lang said sternly, "You should change your mind." The Chelan's arm was burning like a bright red raging fire. It roared, wanting me to obtain victory. I have no regrets in my life. School, Turtle School, Southern Dipper, take a good look at the profound meaning. 1,000 dehydration techniques. Saint Seiya Sun Lang used a palm technique that broke through the speed of sound. He added the dehydration curse of Hogwarts that was taught by Gandalf, the great wizard of Dalaran. Even if you're wearing armor, I can still make you dehydrate and shrink in front of me. A familiar yet frightening sense of pleasure surged forth like a tide. It was the same feeling from before. This guy, where did he learn such a perverted cultivation method from? Empress couldn't help but scream when this thought flashed through her mind. She couldn't stop Sun Lang's all-out attack. Or rather, no woman in this world could stop it. In an instant, she felt as if she had flown into the clouds and saw a palace in the clouds. The magnificent 9-story palace was paved with sparkling and translucent glass. Flowers bloomed, red-crowned cranes strolled in the clouds, and 12 huge fountains sprayed sweet water into the air, exuding a wonderful fragrance. The next moment, she was enveloped by the water from the fountain and rushed down from the clouds, falling into the endless abyss. The temperature around her continued to rise, and she felt as if she had come to another world. In a world of flames, there was a strange laughter that made her blood boil, and she could not control herself. The water around her also became boiling hot. Hot and cold were constantly alternating, water and fire were constantly changing. One moment they would climb to the clouds, and the next moment they would fall to the bottom. This sweet and carefree feeling was the most tempting poison. You clearly knew that you couldn't do this, but you couldn't help but drink poison to quench your thirst. This was because this was the most instinctive and primitive impulse of humans, the source of life and reproduction. Roar, 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 roar. It seems like you still have some energy left. How about trying this again? Hee ha 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 ha. Just as Sun Lang was about to change his technique, a golden light suddenly flashed, and the Tianyuan saber beside him suddenly buzzed. The golden light projected onto Empress's body, immediately triggering some kind of power in her body, directly bouncing back the Daijian saber. The Empress concubine struggled free from this terrifying fantasy and fatal happiness. Her legs went soft, and she sat down on the ground. Her charming face was completely red, as if water was going to come out of it. She took a few deep breaths and looked at Sun Lang. Her eyes were filled with anger and hatred, as well as confusion and fear. How did this fellow do it? Therefore, this ability was the public enemy of all women. Sun Lang was also shocked. He looked at Empress and then glanced at the Tianyuan saber beside her. This was forged by the previous emperor as a personal weapon. Later on, it was passed down to the current emperor. A few years ago, the current emperor, in order to commend the empress concubine for her contributions, allowed her to establish a household. At the same time, he gave this Tianyuan imperial weapon to her as a token and reward. Calculating the time, it happened to be at that time. In an instant, he seemed to understand a lot of things. He looked at Empress with a trace of mockery in his eyes. "Stupid woman, it seems that you have to have a taste of that." Just as he was about to say something, there was a dense sound of horse hooves behind him, and Shui Baochai's anxious shout, "Husband, don't be impulsive. She is still useful." "What do you mean by I am still useful? Do you mean that if I am useless, you can kill me at will?" Shui Baochai. Empress was furious when she heard this. What an adulterous couple. She looked up at Sun Lang and sneered, "Why don't you touch it? Touch it. Continue to touch it. Continue to touch it in front of your wife." Shui Baochai. "Your man wants to." As soon as she finished speaking, Sun Lang lifted her up and reached out to cover her mouth. When their skin touched, Empress's body became sore and numb again, as if she had been electrocuted. Fortunately, she had the power of the Imperial Army in the Tianyuan saber to protect her. She had a strong resistance. She mustered up her remaining courage and opened her mouth to bite Sun Lang's finger. Sun Lang subconsciously moved his finger, and it just happened to reach into the Empress concubine's mouth, touching her small tongue. His fingertip lightly touched the tip of her tongue, and a warm and soft feeling came from his fingertip. If he could feel it, the stimulation the Empress concubine felt was 10 times stronger, and she couldn't help but let out a strange sound. "Bastard! Bastard! Bastard!" When she realized what had happened, she was furious. Just as she was about to struggle, Sun Lang looked back and saw that the pursuers were approaching. He didn't have time to care about her anymore. He directly threw her onto a war horse and pulled out the Tianyuan saber. He jumped onto the war horse and squeezed the horse's belly. "I'll deal with you when we get to a place where there is no one else." Empress was also a decisive person. She wouldn't let her body's instincts affect her energy. She instantly understood Sun Lang's intention and shouted, "Don't even think about it." As a godly archer, Shui Baochai's eyesight was very good. Even in the dark, she could see Sun Lang's movements. She also shouted, "Husband, quickly put down Her Highness." Empress also shouted, "Protect the Emperor! Protect the Emperor!" This time, the camp was in an uproar. Some of the soldiers from the various battalions had lost their minds, and some had been beaten up. Everyone had been utterly defeated before, so their fighting spirit and morale had dropped a lot. When they heard about the turmoil just now, they heard the shouts of General Lin and General Shui the most. It really made people daydream. Everyone liked to watch a good show. But now, they suddenly heard Empress's cry for help. They couldn't watch the fun any longer. For a moment, everyone was anxious. The uninjured generals shouted for the soldiers in the camps to get on their horses and start to block the thieves who dared to kidnap Her Highness Empress. Sun Lang waved the Tianyuan saber and rushed left and right in the camp. The Tianyuan saber was indeed one of the most powerful imperial army in the world. In the hands of Sun Lang, it was even more terrifying. Even if he only used the back of the saber to cut people, it was still unstoppable. For a moment, no one could surpass him. Among the generals, Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai were the most energetic. Lin Daiyu didn't know what had happened at all. She only knew that her brother had come back from the dead, and Shui Baochai had guessed a lot of the truth. However, she still had a lot of questions that she had to figure out immediately. It was like what Empress had said before. Her husband would never return to the Rongwa mansion. Why didn't he go back? That was their home. She had already guessed several possibilities, and each of them made her panic. No matter what, she had to figure out this matter. As a result, there was even a kind of strange and twisted comical feeling in the camp. A thief of unknown origin kidnapped the Emperor's concubine and placed her on a horse. He was like a mountain king who had stolen the wife of a fort. The Emperor's concubine cursed loudly on the horse. This scene was very normal, but the key was General Lin and General Shui were chasing after her, calling her husband. What was going on? The generals who led the headquarters to intercept the thief looked at each other. A few of them had a meaningful and complicated look in their eyes. Most of them were confused and felt that the noble circle was really messy. In short, although Empress being kidnapped seemed to be a big deal, looking at this scene, there was a subtle illusion that this was actually not a big deal. Sun Lang was galloping in the camp on the horse, knocking down the soldiers who blocked his way. Empress was still struggling and cursing. Boss Sun Lang was impatient and shouted, "If you shout again, I will block your mouth." Empress roared angrily, "You have a knife in your left hand and a rein in your right hand. How can you block my mouth?" Sun Lang did not say anything. Just as he was about to untie his belt, Shwet Baochai shouted from behind him, "Husband, if you want to marry Her Highness Empress, we could discuss it later. Don't take the risk." Empress almost vomited blood and shouted, "Shwet Baochai." As soon as he said this, the generals who were chasing after him almost fell off their horses. Even the soldiers were dumbfounded. Then, this dumbfounded expression turned into a sudden realization. Everyone was just short of a meaningful "oh." But Lin Dayu and Shwe Baochai still galloped on their horses and did not stop for a moment. Sun Lang did not slow down at all and galloped toward the camp gate. Suddenly, a group of people rushed out from the side. The leader held two hammers and said, Uncle, what are you doing? Stop! Don't be impulsive, don't be impulsive." Sun Lang shouted, "Trash! Trash! I told you to block my path." How could Qian Yuanshuang care about this? He had never thought that Sun Lang would be so bold as to kidnap Empress. He shouted as he chased, "Uncle, rein in your horse! Rein in your horse!" Sun Lang looked back at Lin Dayu and Shwe Baochai, who were chasing after him, and roared, "I'm happy your mother. Why are you scolding me?" Before General Qian could react, a golden saber chi came at him, knocking him flat on his face and causing him to fall to the ground. When the soldiers came to save him, Sun Lang had already rushed to the camp gate. With one saber, he sent the army formation that was blocking the road flying. With another saber, he sent the 3 horse barricades and the heavy camp gate flying. Amidst the shouts of the soldiers, he rushed out of the camp with Princess Concubine. A moment later, Lin Dayu and Shwe Baochai galloped out and followed closely into the night. When Qian Yuanshuang got up, he found that there was a circle of people around him. They were all his fellow generals and some high-ranking officers. Everyone had a strange look in their eyes. Everyone seemed to have heard what he had just said, because their eyes seemed to have the same meaning. "Oh, old uncle," they all seemed to be saying the same thing. Qian Yuanshuang smiled and rubbed his head. He blushed and said, That person is an uncle that I just met today. You might not believe it, but his official position is very, very high." Everyone continued to stare at him with strange eyes. I actually didn't know that he would do such a thing. "Okay," I said, "shouldn't we do something else now?" "Fuck, why are you looking at me? Hurry up," and King Chase. Chapter 540. In the vast night, war horses neighed and galloped towards the north. There were 2 people immediately. One was lying on his stomach, and the other was riding on his back. It was as if the king of the mountain who had stolen his wife was returning triumphantly. The Empress Concubine struggled as she scolded and threatened. "Sun Lang, you kidnapped me. Have you thought of the consequences? When the news reaches the capital, this matter will be over. It's over, do you understand?" Sun Lang looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. His voice shook the surroundings. "Look behind you, Mother Kerr. Isn't it already over?" Behind him, Instructor Lin and class leader Shwe's affectionate calls could be heard. It was as if the hatchet and blood were waving at him. Empress was silent for a moment. "Do you have to be so scared?" Sun Lang said coldly, "What do you know?" The atmosphere between the two instantly turned cold and austere. After a while, Empress said indifferently, "It seems like you care about this more than I thought. You can't win against me like this, Sun Lang." Sun Lang said calmly, "Do you want to try? Let's see who dies first." Empress gritted his teeth and said, "Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me." Sun Lang said slowly, "If I die, I'll drag your country down with me." The two fell silent again. At this moment, Empress suddenly realized that their relationship had deteriorated irreversibly. They could never return to the past. The seemingly happy and peaceful conversation was just the calm before the storm, an illusion on the surface. There was no warmth, no trust, no tacit understanding, no mutual appreciation. All that was left was hypocrisy, politeness, scheming, hypocrisy, and unforgettable hatred. They could only be enemies. They could only be enemies forever. No one would lower their heads. After a while, Empress suddenly gritted his teeth and said, "You big liar." Sun Lang said indifferently, "You're the big ass." However, there was one thing that hadn't changed, and that was this guy's ability to quarrel. This guy had a sharp tongue, and the results of his quarrels hadn't changed at all. This guy was still as hateful as before. Empress was just about to struggle and hit Sun Lang when Sun Lang gently patted her on the back. All the strength in her body disappeared, and even her bones seemed to have softened. She felt lazy all over and couldn't muster up any strength. She was shocked and angry as she shouted, "What's going on?" Sun Lang did not answer. Empress thought for a moment and said in a subtle tone, "You didn't pick up a book of obscenity and practice it all the way to the highest level happily, did you?" "Why do all of you say that?" Empress snorted. "Because you're such a pervert." Sun Lang snorted coldly and did not reply. Empress was lying on the horse's back, so it was difficult for him to move. He felt uncomfortable and bored, so he continued to ask, "So what's going on?" "Don't tell me you really," Sun Lang said calmly. "It's your fault." Empress was stunned for a moment and spat. "Bah, what does this kind of obscene thing have to do with me?" Sun Lang shouted, "Shut up." This shout was full of vigorous internal energy, and it resounded through the night sky like thunder. Empress's ears were buzzing. She was shocked at first, and then her stubborn temper rose. She scolded, "What are you shouting for?" Sun Lang's eyes were sharp. He reached out and grabbed Empress, throwing her directly to the ground. "Damn woman, why do you think this is? How do you think this is? Great Desolate Mountain." There was more than one debt to be collected. This was not the main road, so there were a lot of gravel. Although Empress was protected by heavy armor, she was powerless at this time. When she fell to the ground, she still felt a burst of pain. However, she had been competitive since she was young, and now she had a respected status. She was the general of the Tensei, and her power was slightly above the prince's. She had developed a royal aura that was only below one person and above tens of thousands. Usually, the officials would bow to her, and the 9 ministers would bow to her. Why had she ever suffered such a loss? This fall brought out the anger in her heart. She used her hands and feet to get up. She stared fiercely at Sun Lang and shouted, "Come, you want to kill me? Don't you want to kill me?" Sun Lang jumped from a horse and landed steadily on the ground. His face was serious. He walked step by step towards Empress. In an instant, a strong wind blew around him. The wind was like a knife. The horse was constantly frightened and retreated. It let out waves of frightened neighs. Animals' senses were always better than ordinary people. At this time, it felt a huge threat coming from the human in front of it. His killing intent was blazing. This was a poisonous wine brewed from hatred. From 8 years ago to 2 years ago, his originally peaceful life had been changed. He had forcibly placed himself in a bloody battlefield. He had once given him hope, but in the end, he had taken it away. The pain and despair he had experienced would never be forgotten and would never be forgiven. Empress stood stubbornly. Her eyes did not show any weakness. She looked at Sun Lang. Right and wrong did not have any meaning. There were only things that should be done and should not be done. There were only successes and failures. Sun Lang said expressionlessly, "I hate your eyes." Empress gritted her teeth and said, "I also hate your naivety. You have always been like this. So childish, so ridiculous, so full of fantasy. There are no good people in this world. Sun Lang, all the good people are dead. There is no trust between people. Just like I don't trust you, the imperial court doesn't trust you, and my father doesn't trust you. How can a person like you not remember the old hatred after reaching a high position?" Sun Lang said lightly, "I have slowly stopped hating." Empress sneered and said, "Is this important?" Yes, it was not important. The human heart could not be predicted. The important thing was that the imperial court would not believe it. The emperor would not believe it. They judged others by themselves, so they would not believe it. They had seen through human nature, so they would not believe it. Humans were just such creatures. They were suspicious, dark, judged others by themselves, and criticized heroes. This was something that was already destined. Even if you acted obedient and docile, the emperor would still be suspicious of you. Even if you were not greedy for power and wealth, after you succeeded, the emperor would still be afraid of your influence. He would be worried that you were planning something in the dark. Even if you tarnished your own name, the emperor had the evidence to kill you. Why wouldn't he use it? Because you were a different race. You came from another world. They forced you to fight. They knew you had suffered a lot, so they felt guilty. It was normal for them to be suspicious. No matter what you did, no matter what you did, no matter how you compromised, you could not change this. I should have thought it through. I should have thought it through. Sun Lang suddenly laughed. He laughed and laughed and laughed, then gritted his teeth and said, "You emperors and officials from ancient times until now are all bastards. You will all die a horrible death." Empress raised her eyebrows and said coldly, "This is why we are suspicious of you. You are a sky demon. You are a freak from another world. You look like us, but you're not like us at all. Everyone works by the rules. Only you are unique. Everyone benefits from the relationship between the emperor and his subjects. Only you are shouting about dignity and equality. Ridiculous," she said in a gloomy tone. "Those pathetic bumpkins, those ignorant people, they are timid. They forget righteousness for the sake of profit. Do they deserve dignity and equality with us?" Sun Lang smiled viciously and said, "But I just like to see those vulgar bumpkins and ignorant people break, rob, kill, and hang everything you have." The emperor's concubine sternly shouted, "Traitor!" Sun Lang laughed and said, "Yes, yes, that thing happened 2 years ago. Did you only know it now?" Speaking of this, Empress Concubine's eyes burst into flames. She let out a furious roar and charged towards Sun Lang without a care. "This damn bastard." Sun Lang easily dodged her serial killing moves. He pulled out the Tian Yuan saber and slashed at her back, sending Empress flying far away. The woman spat out a small mouthful of blood. She raised her head and looked at Sun Lang fiercely. "In the past 2 years, whenever you think of that thing, do you feel very panicked, very desperate, very *ket up, and don't even know what to do? You asked for it." Sun Lang walked toward Empress with the saber and sighed softly. "The sun is shining. The sun is shining." Empress let out a beast-like roar. She stood up and wanted to continue rushing towards Sun Lang. In an instant, a sharp whistle sounded from afar. An arrow was inserted into the ground between the two like a meteor. Sun Lang stopped and turned his head. 2 familiar figures galloped over from afar. "So slow," he said. His voice was so calm that it was somewhat frightening. Shui Baochai saw Sun Lang's cold eyes from afar. For some reason, she felt a sharp pain in her heart, as if someone had stabbed her with a knife. The girl threw down the bow in her hand, jumped off the horse, and ran over. As she ran, she shouted, "Husband, you can't kill her now. If you kill her, there's no turning back." Sun Lang looked at her quietly, his eyes as calm as the surface of a lake. Even Lin Daiyu, who was following them, was frightened by this gaze and couldn't help but stop. Shui Baochai took a deep breath and said as fast as she could, "Husband, I know you must have a lot of pain in your heart, but killing Empress is no different from declaring war. Are you ready? If you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. If you marry a dog, follow the dog. You're still alive, so no matter if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, we can die together. But you have to think about the family. Granny is already so old." Speaking of this, even with her shrewdness and temperament, her eyes turned red and she cried. The widows of the Ronghua house had been supporting the family in the past 2 years under the gossip of outsiders. Old Lady Jia put on the military uniform again. The women tried their best to maintain the reputation of the House of High Duke. 2 years ago, it was like the sky had fallen, but everyone still held on. When they knew that the last legitimate son of the Ronghua house didn't die in the Battle of the Great Bear Mountain and survived, how happy they were. This house of High Duke that looked glamorous on the outside and was full of internal troubles needed a legitimate and talented heir to take charge. But, although he survived, he was full of hatred for the Empire. It was easy to guess what he had encountered, but this kind of thing, even she couldn't think of a proper solution. She could see the hatred and anger in Sun Lang's heart from his eyes. As a wife, she should accompany her husband to get revenge. But what about the Ronghua house? If the flag of rebellion was raised here, no one in the Ronghua house could escape, and everyone would be implicated. Sun Lang looked at Xue Baochai, who was crying, and didn't say a word. Lin Daiyu gritted her teeth and took the Fangtian halberd from Xue Baochai. "Brother, if you're angry, I'll stab her to death with the halberd and then commit suicide. Then you can push the blame to me," Sun Lang frowned. "Nonsense." As expected, Lin Daiyu stopped and looked at him with wide eyes. Sun Lang was silent for a moment and then suddenly stabbed the Tianyuan blade into the ground. He turned around and said, "Take her back and pretend nothing happened today." Lin Daiyu said anxiously, "Brother." But Sun Lang seemed to have made up his mind. Without Empress holding him back, his speed was unmatched, and he rushed into the distance like a rainbow. Lin Daiyu still wanted to chase after him, but Xue Baochai said softly, "Pin air, don't chase." Sister Lin still wanted to say something, but Sister Bao said, "He will come again." Lin Daiyu looked at her. Their relationship before wasn't very good. She didn't like this sister who was always smiling. She felt that when she was smiling, she must be hiding evil in her heart. She wasn't a good person. After they entered the army together and met brother, she didn't like Xue Baochai. After all, it was the nature of a girl. But after that incident 2 years ago, when they fought, their relationship slowly improved because the feelings in their hearts became longing. Because of what they said before, their brother's love had to be shared equally. But after her brother's death, their longing for him didn't need to be shared equally, nor did they need to fight for it. Now, although brother had come back safely, she should be like before and treat Xue Baochai as a competitor. She didn't like her, but for some reason, she didn't feel any hostility. Instead, she was worried her relationship with Xue Baochai had improved over the past 2 years, so she could see at a glance that Sister Bao's heart was filled with panic and sadness. What was she troubled about? No matter what, it was better not to let her worry first. Lin Daiyu reluctantly looked in the direction where Sun Lang left. Since Xue Baochai said so, and since brother would come back, she would listen to her first. Xue Baochai smiled gratefully at Lin Daiyu, then walked to the other side to help Empress. General Tensei had suffered a lot tonight and was exhausted. She barely stood and said, "Xue Baochai, thank you for today, slap." It was burning hot. Before she finished speaking, she was slapped hard on the face. Before anger, there was shock. Empress looked at the woman in front of her in shock. Xue Baochai gritted her teeth and cried. This woman who never seemed to know what anger was and had always been smiling finally had something else on her face. Looking at the tears on Xue Baochai's face, the anger in the Empress concubine's heart suddenly dissipated for some reason. What replaced it was an indescribable sadness and sorrow. She turned her head to look in the direction Sun Lang left and softly said, "He seems to love you guys a lot." So he didn't tell them the cruel truth but left directly. He didn't tell them that whether it was the Ronghua mansion, the Jia family, the ancestors, or the hundreds of lives, all of these had nothing to do with him, an outsider. He was still as naive, childish, ridiculous, and stupid as before. He had never changed. Chapter 541. The night was dark, and not a sound could be heard. Inside Marquis Jinggan Fu, a certain person's triumphant laughter could be heard. "So I, Sun Han San, have returned." Sun Lang excitedly patted the wheelchair under him. Oh no, the chair. Spittle flew everywhere. He was very excited. The brave and valiant General Sun, the invincible commander, displayed the unparalleled art of war and extraordinary strength in a brave surprise attack, dealing heavy blows to the despicable and shameless traitors of the Empire. These vicious traitors of the Empire will definitely recognize the determination and strength of the people of Mingzhou to resist tyranny, as well as General Sun's prestige that is as hot as the sun. His voice was rhythmic, sonorous, and powerful. This special speech technique should have been learned from a certain Korean granny on Earth. It had an extremely strong sense of oppression, scaring the 3 people in the audience into a daze. He looked very pleased with himself. Soon after, he looked at the audience with a proud gaze, filled with the superiority of a winner in life. "Do you guys think I'm cool?" The 3 men in front of him shook their heads in unison, not looking. Sun Lang angrily said, you guys have become so F******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** official, deeply understanding the principle that the leader must be pacified. But the problem was that he had been busy with official business these past 2 days, working overtime endlessly. Today, he had slept for less than an hour before he was called out of bed. He was in a daze, and his brain was working slower than usual, so, although he didn't know what became so harmonious recently meant since the marshal gave the order, then he immediately turned his gaze to Sun Lang's crotch and seriously stared at it for a while before raising his thumb. Marshal, so cool, so cool. Did this idiot become muddled from working overtime? Sun Lang's face darkened. On the other side, Qi Guanyin nonchalantly turned his head to the side. Being called out in the middle of the night, Old who was the most unhappy. He was someone with a family, and his madam was about to give birth. He carefully guarded her all day and already had a tendency to be startled. Logically speaking, it wasn't too difficult for a woman to give birth a second time. However, as a victim of his wife's singing before she gave birth and being nagged by Sun Lang all day, he actually became scared witless. Fortunately, Lu Shujin came to Mingzhou and gave Mrs. Hu a diagnosis. With this former China soldier in charge, Mr. Hu finally felt relieved. However, he was still very unhappy in the middle of the night. Sun Lang looked at him and sighed. Look at you. Why are you angry? Anyway, your wife is about to give birth. You definitely don't have a sexual life now. I don't think so, right? Let me tell you, you can't mess around. Even if you believe that a rod produces a filial son, you can't mess around now. What the F***CK? Old who understood what Sun Lang was talking about in the blink of an eye. He couldn't help but spit. He had a good relationship with Sun Lang, so he didn't need to be polite and didn't need to be careful like Lu Shoyan. He rolled his eyes and asked, You woke us up in the middle of the night just to talk about this? Sun Lang snorted and said enigmatically, Of course not. As his good friend, Old who had already guessed most of it by looking at his appearance. He secretly sneered, You finally got your retribution. Jump, jump, jump. He put on a solemn expression and nodded his head. That's right, to wake us up in the middle of the night. It must be something very important. It's better if we work together. Men, go get your family's young miss, housekeeper Sue, young Miss Zhang, General Zhao, Divine Dr. Liu, young Miss Sima, and Sun Lang let out a burst of hearty laughter, abruptly interrupting Hu Shouxin's words. He waved his hand and proudly said, This is a matter between men. Women shouldn't get involved. Old Hu, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you need to change this problem of being afraid of your wife. We men are the pillars of the family. We are the heads of the family. We have nothing to fear. When has it been a woman's turn to come up with ideas for this kind of important matter? Old Hu coldly looked at him. Oh, nothing to fear. Sun Lang stared at him and said, What? What are you looking at? Old Hu coldly said, Nothing. I just want to ask, if you have nothing to fear, then why are you running? The atmosphere suddenly became very awkward. Sun Lang opened his eyes wide and his face turned red. The veins on his forehead popped out as he argued. Turning around can't be considered running. This is F***CK. F***CK. Hey, you two listen carefully, my wife. Old Hu could not hold it in any longer. He leaped up from his chair and pounced at Sun Lang, wanting to fight him. Sun Lang laughed wildly and said, Do you think I'll let you have it easy? This is the essence of the nuclear binding. Sun Lang, the former marshal of the Imperial Army, was the biggest hoodlum in the world, a loyal supporter of the nuclear binding plan, an advocate of mutual destruction, and a great strategist. Naturally, this was based on the premise that both sides had lethal weapons. He was the kind of person who would start promoting the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty at the United Nations after he had produced enough nuclear bombs in Civilization 5. Seeing that a fight was about to break out, Liu Zhou and General Qi could no longer sit still. They hastily pulled the two men back. Old Hu was so angry that his beard was blowing and his eyes were glaring. Sun Lang, on the other hand, looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. When Qi Guanyin saw that this was not going to end well, he had no choice but to be the peacemaker. He pulled the two men back to their chairs and said gently, "Now is not the time to joke around. Let's sit down and talk." General Qi had just lost his wife, so it was not good for everyone to be too festive in front of him. Moreover, this time, Empress had led the army here. He was willing to come out and help, so everyone was very grateful to him. In fact, after he took back the military power from Hu Shouxin and gave orders, the response of the army in Ming province had been much faster. General Qi observed the state of Sun Lang and Old Hu. With the pair of discerning eyes that he had trained over the years in the underworld, he could see at a glance that the marshals seemed to be panicking. It seemed that something must have happened in the Imperial Envoy's camp that made him feel guilty. As for Hu Shouxin, his heart was filled with a mixture of excitement and fear. It seemed that these two fellows had a grudge that he did not know about. Under such circumstances, he naturally could not allow these two fellows to talk too much. Therefore, General Qi took up the role of the moderator of the meeting. He asked, "I heard from a marshal that you went to the camp and caused a ruckus?" Sun Lang proudly repeated the magnificent feat of leading 21 strong men from Arkham to sweep through the camp. At that time, he only told the story up to the first time they broke out of the encirclement. For example, the embarrassing part where he returned for the second time and fell into a despicable trap was too much of a disgrace to his wise and mighty image. Therefore, he skipped over it. After listening to his description, the three men gasped in unison. Liu Shuyan's heart thumped heavily. For some reason, this kind of absurd thing, coming from Sun Lang's mouth, actually had a lot of credibility. With this kind of ability, it was no wonder he could survive in the Great Bear Mountains. He raised his hands and sighed in admiration. "Marshall's divine ability, I am impressed." Even Hu Shouxin, who was very familiar with Sun Lang's former comrade, was shocked. He did not suspect that Sun Lang was lying. Although this bastard usually talked a lot, he would not lie about such an insignificant matter. Old Hu was somewhat surprised and uncertain. "When did your martial arts become so strong?" Sun Lang gave him a thumbs up. "I leveled up." His words were still incomprehensible. Qi Guanyin's expression also changed. He digested this information and nodded. "I see. This is a good move. Right now, the people of Mingzhou are uncertain. The enemy is strong and we are weak. The person the imperial court fears the most is you, Marshal. This demonstration will make Empress understand the situation clearly. What they need to worry about is not only your reputation, connections, and prestige in the 6 armies of Tianyuan, but also your destructive power as a top warrior." Sun Lang smiled proudly. Just as he was about to boast about himself again, he heard Qi Guanyin continue. "However, if I may be so bold as to guess, the marshal should now want to fight or not. This confrontation with the imperial court should be discussed on the table, and not directly fought, right?" Sun Lang nodded. "Yes. Since we have the initiative and have the right to choose, we should use this opportunity to expand our advantage and rope in allies, and not start a war immediately. It's still too hasty right now." Qi Guanyin nodded. "Then we can't force Empress too much. Since the marshal has already given them a warning, the next step should be to adopt a gentler approach." Liu Shuyan asked, "A gentler approach?" Sun Lang crossed his legs and whistled nonchalantly. "Send someone to bring some things to express our condolences? For example, clean clothes, tents, water, food, etc." As soon as he finished, Hu Shouxin and Qi Guanyin immediately showed sympathetic expressions. Old who rolled his eyes. UF asterisk king used that thing again? Sun Lang slammed the table. F asterisk CK. I didn't kill a single person. These peaceful weapons of mass destruction are so humane. They should be thanking me. Qi Guanyin and Hu Shouxin looked at each other and sighed. Looks like this method can't be used. Hu Shouxin nodded. Yes, those who go to express their condolences might all be killed. The general shook his head. Then there's no other way. Marshal, you have to go again. Sun Lang's eyes widened as he cried out, huh. Hu Shouxin looked at Sun Lang's appearance and finally had 100% confidence in his heart. It seemed that Sun Lang was not telling the truth. He had indeed succeeded in running into his two old lovers during his brave and fearless raid on the camp. Perhaps he had even been chased for several li by them with swords and spears. He laughed sinisterly, feeling a sense of satisfaction. Why are you panicking? Sun Lang said darkly. Which eye of yours saw me panicking? My wife isn't in labor yet. F asterisk CK, F asterisk CK, F asterisk CK, F asterisk CK. Why? This bastard also encountered such a big scandal. How can he still be so arrogant? Obviously, I also have something that can be used against him. Why is he still so cocky? Qi Guanyin saw that the situation was not right and hurriedly asked, Marshal, what's the problem? Sun Lang said seriously, I think you just said that I'm the secret weapon of our side. Since I'm a secret weapon, I have to be the last to appear and maintain a sense of mystery, right? So my role should be the final nail in the coffin. Only if I hide behind the scenes, they won't be able to see where I am. That's why they're anxious and feel threatened. Isn't that the logic? He patted the chair handle and said sincerely, so, I think, in this first negotiation and meeting, it's not suitable for me to appear. It's better for you guys to go. I'll protect you in the dark. Hu Shouxin immediately saw through Sun Lang's wild ambition. What kind of F asterisk king joke was this? Let me go. To deal with the questions of your two old lovers? He shook his head decisively. No, my wife is in labor. Mother of asterisk her, this guy is still not afraid of being scalded by boiling water. Qi Guanyin hesitated and shook his head. Marshal, please forgive me. I don't want to go either. I don't want to see that woman. After all, the upheavals that he had encountered in the past few days were the root cause of what happened more than 10 years ago. Everything was related to the Empress concubine. He really didn't know how to face his old master. Sun Lang looked at Lu Shouyin. Lu Zhou said innocently, Marshal, do you think it's appropriate for me to go? In the end, the three of them looked at Sun Lang in unison, implying that he had to go. Sun Lang was stunned for a moment before he said angrily, What kind of joke is this? I came here to ask you guys for help, but it's useless. In the end, you guys came to the same conclusion? He said it. He actually said it. As expected, you don't want to go either. Qi Guanyin and Lu Shouyin were newcomers. They did not understand Sun Lang's mental journey and love life. Therefore, they did not understand the logic behind this. They could not help but look puzzled. The Grand General cupped his fists and said, Marshal, do you have any questions? Why don't you tell us so that we can help? Lu Shouyin chimed in, Go ahead, Marshal. We'll keep our mouths shut. Sun Lang was still hesitating when Hu Shouxin suddenly said, Call Zhao Yunlong here as well. It doesn't matter if she knows about this. Sun Lang waved his hand and said, I've asked her to keep an eye on Yin Luo and young Miss Zhao. You're really thoughtful. You're so familiar with this. You must have come up with this many times in your mind. Old Hu looked around and sighed. Forget it, I'll explain. To put it simply, Empress is coming to Ming Province with the elites of 6 armies. Among them are Soaring Eagle Cavalry and Sky Majestic Town. The commanders are Lin Daiyu and Xue Baochai. Do you understand now? Qi Guanyin and Lu Shouyin understood immediately. Then, a strange expression appeared on their faces. Some were amused, and some were mocking. No wonder the marshal is so flustered. Putting everything else aside, there are already 6 or 7 women living in Marquis Jing An's mansion. All of them have unclear relationships with Sun Lang. If they run into General Lin and General Xue, the scene. TSK, 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 TSK. It's too terrifying. At this moment, the feelings of the two feudal officials of Ming Province, Grand General Qi and Liu Zhou, could be described with two simple words. Think about it. However, they could not say this out loud. The marshal's eyes were murderous, and his expression was sinister. He was like a peerless hero with a murderous aura that seemed to say, "I'm ruthless and merciless," let alone thinking about it. Even if they merely teased him, they might be pressed to the ground and beaten up. Liu Shoyin was a dignified civil official. He was the first to react. He immediately cupped his fists and said, "I'm willing to share the marshal's burden." Qi Guanyin was taken aback. He said, "I see. So, this is what the marshal is worried about. Sigh. Loyalty, filial piety, etiquette, and righteousness." Truly, he was actually the one who could understand Sun Lang's dilemma the quickest, even if the truth was different from what he had imagined. Nevertheless, he could still empathize with Sun Lang's feelings. The battle on Great Desolate Mountain must have been extremely tragic. That was why the marshal's resentment could not be quenched, and he was valiant in seeking revenge. Even if the Rome family was a Grand Duke family that had been passed down for generations, and even if his family was still waiting for him to return, all life was bitter, and those who had feelings were sinful. Qi Guanyin sighed inwardly. No matter what, I'm indebted to the marshal. At the very least, I have to help him untie this knot in his heart. When he thought about this, he said, "Marshal, I'm willing to help as well. If it's really difficult for you, I'll make the trip as well. There are some things that have to come to an end." Sun Lang was slightly taken aback. A touched expression appeared on his face. He was about to thank Qi Guanyin when he heard Qi Guanyin say, "Of course, the marshal will have to be the leader. With us guarding you, at the very least, we can... At the very least, can you block a few sabers for me?" Sun Lang was just about to complain when Qi Guanyin advised, "Marshal, I think that if there are feelings in your heart, there are some things that you should tell the truth as soon as possible. Don't hide it so that you won't have any regrets." There was no sorrow on his face, but there was a bit of sadness in his eyes. There were some things that he would never be able to let go of in his life. He and his wife undoubtedly loved each other deeply, but they hid it from each other. They foolishly made sacrifices that they thought were noble and great, but they did not have the courage to face each other. If there was an if, then many things would be different. Everyone became silent. After a while, Sun Lang raised his head and said to Old Hu, "Did you hear that? Go and shout out your deep and heavy love to your wife. I don't need you to care about my matters." Old Hu said angrily, "Take care of yourself. You brag about how brave you are all day, but in the end, you're scared like something?" Sun Lang said angrily, "I'm warning you. Don't slander me. How am I scared? How am I scared? I'm being generous, respectful." This was his love for them. "I just don't have the heart to hurt everyone. Is that wrong? I just want everyone to be happy. Is that wrong?" Hu Shoshin sneered and said, "Do you dare to say these words to your close female friends?" Sun Lang snorted. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Just as he finished speaking, the sound of tiles knocking on the roof suddenly came. A moment later, one of the tiles was directly lifted, revealing Zhao Yunlong's face. "They're here." Sun Lang flashed to the window with a whoosh. He opened the window and was about to jump out, but in the next moment, he closed the window as fast as he could and cursed, "Damn it, Master Liu." He turned his back and leaned against the window, his face solemn and stirring. "The time to test our friendship has come. You said you'd help me." Hu Shoshin did not say anything and took to his heels. Liu Shoyin followed closely behind. Qi Guanyin hesitated for a moment, then quickly ran out as well. These three bastards had no scruples and directly escaped from the front door. Hey! Chapter 542. Who was Sun Lang? He was a great general of Tianyuan. He was proficient in the art of commanding and the essence of war. Everyone knew that a general's ability to adapt and the art of war was measured by his performance and decisiveness when the main force was at a disadvantage. In this regard, Sun Lang's performance was very good. He felt that when the situation was critical, one could either run or fight with their backs against the wall. Naturally, there were prerequisites to this. When one decided to run, one had to be sure that one could run faster than one's allies. If one could not do that, one had to stay and fight with their backs against the wall. Naturally, one had to bring as many allies as possible with them. At this critical moment, Sun Lang looked up and shouted, "Can you run?" Zhao Yunlong said concisely, "I don't think so." "Then, all of you can stay here together," Sun Lang shouted. With a flash, he charged toward the door and squeezed his way out before Hushoshin. Then, he turned around and struck out with his palm. A tremendous force that could topple mountains and overturn seas was stacked on top of each other. As his good friend, Hushoshin had expected this. He had already circulated his energy and struck out with his palm. However, it was clear that he did not expect Sun Lang to be so determined and obedient. The palm energy surged forward like a raging wave. Before the front energy had dissipated, the back energy had already formed. Layer upon layer, the energy was endless. Old Hu could not withstand it and staggered backwards. Coincidentally, the one who followed behind him was Lu Shoyan. With Lu Shoshin's character and temperament as a mature person, running away from the crowd at this moment was the boldest thing he could do. After all, the law could not punish the majority. However, if he reached out and held Hu Shoshin's back to help him, the situation would change. Lu Shoshin, who had never meddled in the marshal's family matters, had now become someone who hit a man when he was down. He only hesitated for a moment before old Hu's body bumped into him and pushed him back together with him. Behind Lu Shoyan was Ming Province's Grand General, Qi Guanyin. This guy only had the tolerance to be the great general of Mingzhou. If Sun Lang were in his shoes, he would definitely reach out his hand and grab Hu Shoshin's and Lu Shoyan's heads and knock them forward without saying a word. He would let these two idiots block the attack and create the illusion that the three of them were like Manuses trying to stop a chariot. Then, he would take the opportunity to escape and escape. He would rather die than die. This was the way of a mature commander. This was the wisdom of a grand marshal. For someone as inflexible as Qi Guanyin, being a grand general was his limit. Qi Guanyin was not as quick-witted as Sun Lang, so he was stunned for a moment before Lu Shoyan's back bumped into him. Sun Lang took the opportunity to push him away, and the three of them involuntarily staggered back into the room. Sun Lang stood in front of the door and shouted majestically, "Let's see who dares to run today. We, the Hoto army, do not retreat in the face of a fierce battle. Do not evade when encountering a strong enemy. I have never heard of anyone running away before the battle. Look at your pathetic faces. You should have some sense of shame." This was the Grand Marshal's reprimand. Marshal Sun seemed to be very brave at this moment. Upon hearing this, even Lord Lu, who respected Sun Lang the most, could not help but roll his eyes. Then, Sun Lang looked up and said, "Come down now." As soon as Zhao Yunlong rushed in, the door slammed shut with a loud bang. After a short while, the sound of scratching could be heard from outside the door, followed by a series of knocks on the door. Sun Lang said, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and a fragrant breeze blew into their faces. In an instant, it was as if 100 flowers had bloomed. A few beautiful young girls walked in. Miss Zhao was dressed in a pink robe. She smiled gently and said, "You're back, Sun Lang." Inside the house, 5 people sat around a table. It was the highest standard military and political meeting in the Hodo Empire. The chairman of the Central Military Commission, the commanders of 2 major military regions, the acting commander of 1 military region, and a provincial governor. It was no exaggeration to say that a casual decision from these 5 people could cause the entire northern part of the empire to fall into chaos. From this posture and this serious appearance, one could tell at a glance that they were discussing important military matters. Sun Lang sat at the head of the table. His face was solemn as he lowered his head and stared at the table. Without raising his head, he said, "My apologies, Miss Zhao. The Imperial Guard has already headed north. We're currently researching how to deal with them." Zhao Feihuang pursed her lips and smiled. "Sun Lang, what are you staring at the table for?" Don't you need a map to study military matters? Oh, it's rather troublesome to find, so we used a table as a replacement. Sun Lang nonchalantly wiped the table with his hand. Because it's carved on the table, you can't see it too clearly. When everyone looked again, a military map had been carved on the flat wooden table. The mountains, rivers, military towns, dangerous paths, and even the locations of the enemy camps were all clearly displayed. This fellow, how should they evaluate him? Everyone present looked at each other. They wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to. The people who came in were Zhao Feihuang, Zhang Yinluo, Su Qingluan, and Lu Shuzhen. Other than Courier, who was escorting the Arkham troops back to the camp, and Sanzang, who was addicted to racing, all the adult women who had an improper relationship with Sun Lang were all present. Other than Su Qingluan, who followed Miss Zhao around, the other three women were all looking at Sun Lang with a meaningful and inexplicable gaze. It felt like the air was filled with the smell of rust from a chopper. Sun Lang tilted his head and revealed a harmless and pure smile. I heard that staying up late at night is not good for a girl's skin. Do you want to go back and sleep early? We'll study a little more. Miss Zhao responded with a big smile. It's fine. I'm naturally beautiful. Zhang Yinluo pursed his lips. I have the secret technique of Vulture Spirit Palace. Lu Shujin said lightly. I'm a doctor. Su Qingluan said coldly. I'm not afraid. F***CK. Sun Lang's smile became more and more awkward. Hu Shouxin and the others were having a hard time holding back their laughter. They all stared at the map on the table, as if this was a battle of life and death. The marshal smiled for a moment and said, Don't just stand there. Sit, don't be shy. Ms. Zhao walked over with light steps and said with a smile, Lord Lu, I heard from his servants that you've been waking up early and sleeping late these days. It's very tiring. It's already so late. Do you want to go back and rest? Who was Lu Shoyan? He pretended not to see Sun Lang's sharp gaze and stood up as fast as he could. He took 2 steps back and bowed deeply. Thank you for Miss Zhao's concern. This official is indeed very tired these days. After all, I'm old and weak. My spirit is not as good as before. I'll go back and rest now. I won't disturb you anymore. Hey, you're the prefecture overseer of Ming Province. How dare you call yourself a subordinate in front of Miss Zhao? Aren't you ashamed? Amidst Sun Lang's soundless roar, Lord Lu bowed deeply to Sun Lang again. His eyes were full of apology and sympathy. There was no need to say more. Marshal, take care of yourself. If it were any other official business, this official would not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. But this is a matter of your inner chamber. It's not the way of a gentleman for me to get involved. Therefore, Lu Shoyan, the prefecture overseer, slipped away. This was a very innovative example. Hu Shouxin suddenly perked up and got a lot of inspiration. He immediately turned to look at Lu Shuzhen, as expected of a comrade of Tian Yuan who had killed on the battlefield. Annie Lu immediately understood the meaning of old Hu's gaze. She nodded and said, Your wife is about to give birth. You have to stay by her side and make her feel at ease and calm. Don't run around in the middle of the night. Old Hu stood up as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He left the table and bowed deeply. Then, without saying a word, he strode out of the door with his head held high. Just by looking at his back, one could see a strong sense of mission and love for his family. Therefore, Stick Hu slipped away. Then, all the women turned to look at Qi Guanyin, including Chao Patao. Over the past decade, Great General Qi had been known as the good man of the empire. He was a very popular and excellent man among the noble women in Ming Province. It was said that he was controlled by his wife and did not even dare to look at the dancers when he attended banquets in other people's houses. When had he ever been in such a situation? Being stared at by the powerful gazes of these girls, his heart suddenly panicked. Previously, he had wanted to stay behind and say a few words to help Sun Lang out of this predicament. But at this time, these thoughts had long been thrown beyond the clouds. He was about to stand up when Sun Lang pressed down on his arm. The great general and the great general looked at each other. Time seemed to have passed a century. It was like a subordinate with a promising future who was about to retire from the army and go into business, and the old leader came out in person to persuade him to stay. Sun Lang held Qi Guanyin's arm tightly and said affectionately and sincerely, "Stay, my good brother. Ming Province can't do without you." Qi Guanyin tried to break free from Sun Lang's grip, but no matter how many times he tried, Sun Lang's hand did not move at all, as if the hand was made of iron and was directly cast on his arm. Therefore, the great general raised his head in confusion and innocence and signaled with his eyes. "Come and help." Zhang Yinluo sighed and said, "Hurry up and let go of the great general." Sun Lang slapped the table and kicked his legs. "I don't want to. I want to play with little Chi. Zhang Yinluo still maintained his smile and softly repeated, "Hurry up and let go." This smile seemed to contain something else. Sun Lang was startled and instinctively loosened his grip. The general keenly grasped this opportunity and leapt up, dodging to the side. His movements were as quick as flickering light and passing shadows. In the end, he was still a practical person. He looked at Sun Lang's hopeless eyes and couldn't bear it. He hesitated for a moment. Everyone, don't see blood, don't see blood." Then he quickly walked out and cruelly left the old leader in the enemy camp. Well, at least at this moment, he had implemented Sun Lang's aesthetics of war. If you decide to run, you must make sure you run faster than your allies. Thus, Ming Province's great General Qi Guanyin slipped away. In the end, he even helped close the door. Looking at the bright moon in the sky, he smiled. It turned out that it was not easy to marry many wives. Fortunately, I only married you. In the future, I won't marry anyone else. Chapter 543. Gazing at the bright moon in the night sky, Qi Guanyin faintly smiled. The moon had been hanging in the sky since ancient times, year after year, eternally unchanging. It was admired, worshipped, and praised by all intelligent creatures. It carried beautiful wishes and hopes, evolving into beautiful stories, such as lovesickness. Just like now, Qi Guanyin missed his wife who had left him not too long ago. Although he missed her, the pain and worry had gradually faded away, leaving behind only a faint sorrow and a faint warmth. Those sweet, painful, sorrowful, angry, all emotions and memories would ultimately transform into a very simple love, stored in his heart and carefully treasured until eternity. He softly sighed and took one last look at the house not too far behind him. There was a bright light there, and there was a man and 5 women. He was a little worried, but 5 of them. He felt that they deserved it. He sighed, shook his head, and turned around, wanting to leave this troublesome place. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he noticed a subtle movement in the darkness to the side. Who was it? His eyes darkened, and his body suddenly tensed up. Assuming a defensive posture, he walked over step by step, vast and surging true energy gathering in his palms. When he got closer, he suddenly froze, his expression becoming extremely strange. In front of him was a fake mountain. Behind the fake mountain, 2 figures were furtively poking their heads out and whispering to each other. He knew these 2 people, and they had even fought side by side just now. It was hard to imagine that these 2 people, with their identities, would actually hide their heads and show their tails like bandits. The moment he noticed them, the 2 also noticed him. Hu Shouxin and Lu Shouyin both turned their heads, and the 3 of them silently looked at each other for a while. The provincial overseer and the ranger leader both revealed awkward and polite smiles. Qi Guanyin was confused for a moment, but he soon understood. He involuntarily said, The 2 thieves trying to eavesdrop turned pale with fright and gestured for him to keep quiet. Hu Shouxin fiercely said, "Keep your voice down. If you're discovered by Sun Lang, you won't be able to escape." The honest and simple General Qi took a step back, drawing a clear line between him and the 2 thieves. He would never do something like eavesdropping. The general cupped his hands. "Farewell." "Wait." Mingzhou's governor, Lu Shouyin, suddenly stopped him. Lord Lu was a civil official and had a lot of political experience. He knew the importance of a united front. In the imperial court, it was important to gather power to do big things, especially big things like this. They had to pull in as many allies as possible to reduce the risk. Even if they were discovered by the marshal, there would be one more person to beat up. Thus, he revealed a mysterious smile and said softly, "That was the Grand Marshal who dominated his generation back in the day. Don't you want to see such a peerless figure's inner residence catch fire?" Qi Guanyin said awkwardly, "This isn't too good after all. What kind of person was Lord Liu?" He had long seen that Qi Guanyin was moved, but he lacked a reason to convince his conscience. For a civil official, this was too easy. Therefore, he said, "This is not for the sake of watching a show. Think about it. We don't dare to get involved in such a big matter, but we can't just walk away either. We have to wait outside and wait for an opportunity to take action. If there are really knives and spears inside and blood is seen, we can still stop them, right?" Qi Guanyin was obviously moved. After all, in this world, no one was a saint. Therefore, Hu Shouxin and Lu Shuyan smiled brightly and waved at Qi Guanyin. The general hesitated for a moment, then finally walked over quietly. He knew that under the faint moonlight tonight, the governor of Mingzhou, Lu Shuyan, and the military general of Tianyuan, Hu Shouxin, had become good friends with the general of Mingzhou, Qi Guanyin. Sun Lang had no idea what was going on outside. In fact, if it was any other day, with his martial arts and spiritual senses, he should be able to easily notice the 3 thieves who dared to eavesdrop. But today, the marshal's senses and detection skills were clearly affected by debuffs, such as Shiraba's crisis and Woodcutter's interrogation, and they became sluggish. He panicked. He was very panicked, really panicked. Sun Lang, the new harem man, was in a predicament. There was not much time left for him. Don't panic, don't panic. First, calm down. This matter is not that bad, is it? Let's not talk about Zhao Yunlong, who would stand by his side no matter what. Let's not talk about Butler Su, who was like a buy one, get one free deal. Let's not talk about Master Lu, who already knew that Sister Lin and Sister Bao came first. In other words, there are only 2 people. In other words, as long as I deal with Yin Luo and Miss Zhao, everything will be fine. My ass. Chao Patao is also very excited right now. Look at this, look at that. She also seems very excited. Butler Su is also looking at me like I'm a piece of trash. Master Lu seemed to be enjoying the show as well. Sun Lang looked left and right. The girls on both sides were smiling like flowers. Normally, this kind of happiness would be like a dream, but now, he felt like Freddy had entered his dream. He swallowed and said carefully, "I'm sleepy, Zhang." Yin Luo nodded. "Then we'll ask quickly, and you'll answer quickly. After that, you can go back to sleep." Sun Lang laughed out loud. Ask what a Miss Zhao smile. Of course it's about Sun Lang. Where did you go before?" Sun Lang slapped the table and said excitedly, "That's a long story. Come, sit down. Pour me a glass of water, and we'll talk slowly. Today, we arrived first." Yin Luo knocked on the table and said with a smile, "Aren't you sleepy? Let's make it short. Did you go to the Imperial Envoy camp this time? Who did you meet?" Sun Lang's saliva flew everywhere as he said, "After meeting many old friends. Have you heard of Qian Yuan Shuang? He's the son of Badu Army's Grand Marshal Qian Miao. He's in charge of the Jinwu camp, 4th class Maran. He's very brave. There's also that guy in charge of the Wulu camp. Ayaya. Anyway, they're all very brave people. Let me tell you, these are all my son's generation. They're all my nephews. They have to call you aunts." Miss Zhao heard this, and her eyes lit up. She said in surprise, "Is that so?" Yin Luo didn't buy it. She blushed and spat. Seeing that Sun Lang was still stubbornly resisting, she became impatient. She moved closer to Sun Lang and said with a smile, "You know what we want to ask. Sun Lang, how many women did you see this time?" Sun Lang nodded. "Of course I saw them. Courier, Li Hui Yin Guard, Death Messenger, excellent mecha pilot, female hero who abandoned the dark for the light. She's not that muscular woman." Sun Lang said again, "Oh, it's the enemy. Then of course, it's because I saw the big boss of this level. That's right. I saw the Empress. I haven't seen her for 2 years, and she's become even scarier. She spits fire, her waist is 8 feet wide, and she's extremely strong. She can eat 10 children in one meal. Zhao Yunlong was shocked. She eats children? Sun Lang hit her head. You don't have the right to speak. He was about to say something else when he heard Zhang Yinluo say bitterly, You told me before that you won't hide anything from me. Before Sun Lang could say anything, Zhao Feihuang jumped up. Huh, Sun Lang, you're biased. Lu Shujin said coldly. I didn't know you were such an honest person. Zhao Yunlong was also unhappy. Sun Lang, you'll answer whatever she asks? I remember asking you before if you can let me see when you hide in the tent and do that at night. You also said no. Thus, everyone revealed a shocked expression of, you actually F***ed a dog, as they stare at Sun Lang. Who the F***ck is F***king F***ck. This was based on the premise that Su Qingwan stayed out of it. The other 4 women could give him a headache after 3 or 4 rounds of bombardment. How'd that guy who started a harem of more than 100 do it? He took a deep breath and jumped up. Okay. Be quiet. I'll answer, okay. You're all forcing me and not caring about me. You let me, a simple and kind child, carry so many things, and now you're bullying me like this. At this point, Sun Lang pretended to sob a few times. I'll confess, okay? Alas, he sighed, a sorrowful look on his face. His eyes were full of fatigue, as if the heavy burden on his shoulders was too much for him to bear. Seeing Sun Lang like this, the girls' hearts suddenly softened. Sun Lang picked up the teacup, took a sip of tea, and continued. Tonight is a special day. The moon is very round and wonderful tonight. I think I'll meet unexpected people. It was obviously nonsense, but after Sun Lang's previous emotional foreshadowing, everyone felt that it was still nonsense in their hearts, but they were too embarrassed to interrupt him, so they could only listen quietly. But at this moment, a cold light flashed in Sun Lang's eyes. Now was the time. He suddenly shouted, Who are you? How dare you eavesdrop? Then, he brazenly struck out with his palm. A sharp and formless sword chi shot out from his hand and slashed the door into pieces. The gentle moonlight shone on the stone floor and dyed it with a snow-white brilliance. Everyone's gaze passed through the shattered door and focused on the 3 people who were tiptoeing in this direction. Hu Shouxin, Lu Shouyin, and Qi Guanyin. The 3 big shots in the Ming province looked sneaky. The air suddenly became quiet. After an unknown amount of time, there was a crisp sound. The teacup in Sun Lang's hand fell to the ground and shattered, waking everyone up from their stupor. They saw Sun Lang's face full of disbelief. He stretched out his hand, and his fingers trembled as he pointed at the 3 idiots. His eyes were full of pain and anger. You all! The Grand Marshal's angry roar echoed in the sky above Marquis Jingganfu. They really were fucking eavesdropping outside. Chapter 544. The original plan was like this. First, he would use emotions and bullshit narration to attract the attention of the audience. After attracting the attention, he would shout that someone was eavesdropping outside and use his palm to break open the wooden door. His words and actions would flow smoothly. His acting was flawless and directly touched people's hearts. The women's attention would be attracted, and they would definitely subconsciously look outside. Then, I will seize this moment and use this sun's unparalleled, peerless divine technique to break out of the encirclement from above. Before anyone could react, I will escape from this demon cave called Azura Field and prove to this cruel and dark world that my life is in my own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. It was originally a very perfect plan with a very high success rate. But you guys were really King eavesdropping outside. The 3 idiots outside. They didn't help him when he was in danger and didn't care about loyalty. When he needed help the most, they cruelly abandoned him. After running out, they didn't King leave and actually wanted to stay and eavesdrop. They were so bad. Sun Lang's anger rose from his heart. He was in the Azura Field, and you guys are watching from the side. Was it fun? Was it fun? I'll let you listen." He let out an angry roar and strode out of the room. He said sternly, "You all have to enter Qin's city." The three thieves outside finally came back to their senses. Great General Qi was an honest man. He immediately raised his hands and stayed where he was. He looked like he would be lenient if he confessed and said loudly, "They dragged me here." Hu Shouxin and Lu Shouyan were stunned at first and then glared angrily at the traitor. He was the most untrustworthy. Thus, under the faint moonlight tonight, the friendship between Mingzhou's governor Lu Shouyan, Tianyuan's military general Hu Shouxin, and Mingzhou's great general Qi Guanyin was quickly broken. Lu Shouyan and Hu Shouxin turned and ran. Sun Lang was filled with killing intent. He chased after them and shouted, "Where do you think you're going?" The honest man Qi Guanyin stayed where he was, waiting to be dealt with. He only felt a gust of wind blow against his face. As Sun Lang rushed over, he casually punched him in the chest, sending the Grand General flying. He landed on the ground, and then he heard an angry, scolding, "Trash, trash." Hu Shouxin was also panicking in his heart. He knew Sun Lang's ability. With this guy's Qin Gong, it was only a matter of time before he was caught. Moreover, this time it was his own side that was in the wrong. But the most important thing is that this bastard has something on me. All he had to do was sing the song My Wife, and Hu Shouxin, the leader of Mingzhou's Ranger Association and the hero of Tianyuan, would die in society. Mr. Hu weighed the pros and cons and had no intention of resisting the tyranny. He immediately stopped, squatted down with his hands on his head, and said in a muffled voice, "My wife is about to give birth. You can beat her as you see fit." He snorted inwardly. At a time like this, the last person who put up a desperate struggle would be tortured and punished the most. "Qi Guanyin, you're smart and scheming, but I, Mr. Hu, am not bad either." When Sun Lang passed by Mr. Hu, he kicked him and cursed, "You're an idiot too." After kicking Mr. Hu away, Sun Lang shouted, "Lu Shouyan, stop right there." Lu Zhou, who was running ahead, laughed arrogantly. "Marshal, I won't keep you company any longer. F***CK, you're dead meat." Sun Lang let out an even angrier roar. He shot out like a meteor chasing after the moon. He unleashed his movement technique to its limit. With Lu Zhou in front and Sun Lang behind him, they vanished into the night like two long arcs of light. The girls seemed to have woken up from a dream. They chased after them. However, the night was dark. They could not see Sun Lang at all. Zhang Yinluo stomped his foot. "I can't believe he got away." Zhao Feihuang lowered his eyes and said calmly, "It seems like this is not a small matter. This is the first time I've seen Sun Lang so flustered." As expected, Lu Shujin said indifferently, "He's always been like this. It's within my expectations." Zhao Yunlong blinked. Huh? What are you talking about?" "Wait, Annie Lu, you seem to be very close to them. Are you discussing something? Why didn't you tell me?" "Nonsense. If you knew, Sun Lang would know as well. Of course, I have to hide it from you." Master Lu shook his head. "It's not convenient for you to know about this for now. In any case, we won't harm him. Just remember that." Zhao Yunlong frowned. "Wait, are you saying?" Lu Shujin said calmly, "I didn't say anything. If I'm not wrong, with his temperament, he might not tell the truth in this lifetime. If he told Xue Baochai, Lin Daiyu, and even Rongwa Manor the truth about his past, he could completely cut off the shackles of the past. However, they would probably fall into confusion and confusion. Although the one they knew was Sun Lang, and the one they loved was also this man, the original link that connected all of this was Rongwa Manor, Sun Lang's previous identity. Now that he had broken free of the past and was active in this world under the name of freedom, he could do what he wanted. However, there was still one thing that could not be avoided. That was, the connection between him and Rongwa Manor could not be severed. Only this connection could not be smoothly inherited under a new name. This was because this connection was built on the basis of flesh and blood, not his soul. He could continue to claim that he was once the supreme marshal of all the armies in the world, because this was a feat he had achieved with his own hands. However, the identity of the legitimate son of Rongwa Manor came from his blood. It was something that did not belong to him at all. Of course, he could once again become active in the Hutu imperial court as the successor of the future Duke of Jiao Manor. With his strength, connections, and reputation, it would not be difficult for him to completely take over Rongwa Manor. Even if the people of Jiao Manor knew the truth, perhaps they would tacitly agree and obey, because given Rongwa Manor's current situation, they had no other choice. However, this was not the main point of the problem. The problem was not whether Sun Lang could do this or not, but whether Sun Lang wanted to do this or not. He definitely did not want to. If possible, no one would want to live as someone else, much less someone like him, someone who had experienced pain and finally obtained freedom. However, if he made all of this clear, it would put Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai in a dilemma. Because Sun Lang wanted to rebel, Sun Lang wanted revenge, Sun Lang wanted justice. They considered themselves to be Sun Lang's wives, but they also had their own clans. In these last few years, they had even treated Rongwa Manor as their own home. They believed that they had married into the Jia clan, but in reality, they had married an outsider. When the time came, how would they deal with themselves? It would definitely be very difficult for them. Sun Lang would definitely not want to make things difficult for them. He had always been like this, always thinking for others. In the army, he had for the first time systematically proposed the tactical deduction technique of thinking from another's perspective. This was to have the generals consider tactical movements from the enemy's point of view and then counterattack. But when it came to him, this method of thinking was instead used to show concern for others. He had always been like this, never changing. Perhaps he would conceal this truth for the rest of his life, keeping Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai in the dark. But this was because he had a good heart. However, this did not mean that certain people could enjoy all of this with a clear conscience. Or else, I would be very unhappy. What kind of joke is this? Why should I have a hidden thorn between me and Sun Lang? A cold war for 6 years, until the matter of the Keita demonic sword was completely written off. You two little girls have been laughing and joking with him, whispering sweet nothings to each other for so long. 2 years later, can you still continue? Lu Shujin let out a series of cold, complacent laughs in her heart. Her gaze turned to Zhao Yunlong, Zhang Yinluo, Zhao Feihuang, and the others, as if she was looking at a little sister. In the tone of a leader, she said, "This guy won't be able to hide for too long. It's late today. Everyone should go back and rest." Then she turned and left, her tall and slender figure leaving gracefully. The remaining few girls looked at each other. Zhao Yunlong's intuition was the sharpest, and he turned his head with a blank expression. She seems to be very proud. What is she so proud of? Zhang Yinluo copied Sun Lang and shrugged. I don't know, it's weird. Thus, the girls also went back to rest. No one paid any attention to Hu Shouxin and Qi Guanyin, who were left where they were with awkward expressions. The two Heaven Yuan generals looked at each other. After a while, Hu Shouxin raised his middle finger at Qi Guanyin. Bitch. This gesture was also learned from Sun Lang. Qi Guanyin smiled bitterly, and then looked into the distance. He said worriedly, "Sigh, Lord Lu. With the marshal's Qinggong, it's very easy to catch up to Lord Lu. Even if Lord Lu is from the censorate, it's useless. There's still no news from him now. Who knows what torture he's going through, Sigh?" Hu Shouxin also nodded. Yes. Fortunately, I retreated quickly. Thus, they began to miss comrade Lu Shouyin. A general was a general, after all. Their guess was right. At this moment, Sun Lang had already caught up to Lu Shouyin. Or rather, he had stopped on his own initiative. In a small tavern 2 blocks away, Sun Lang and Lu Shouyin were sitting in a corner. Ming Province had recently implemented a curfew, but for the former chairman of the Central Military Commission and governor of Ming Province, the curfew was nothing. The curfew order was issued by Governor Lu. Knowingly breaking the law was a part of officialdom, and it was not fun to play with. They directly tore down the door and lit the lamps themselves. They yelled at the manager and the waiter, and used a large ingot of silver to shut their mouths. Then they served wine and dishes, and let the two lords sit down and drink slowly. Sun Lang raised his wine bowl and clinked it with Lu Shoyan's. Thanks. You're smart. Stick Hu and Qi Guanyin are both idiots. I'll beat them to death later. The governor of Ming province, Lu Shoyan, was a smart man. Chapter 545. Lu Shoyan held the wine bowl with both hands and drained it in one gulp. After all, he was not a member of the 6 armies of Heaven's Yuan back then, and he did not know much about Sun Lang's past. Naturally, he did not know what kind of honor it was for Sun Lang to take the initiative to drink with him. After all, as a homebody, this fellow did not like to drink much. Therefore, this also proved the joy in Sun Lang's heart at this moment. He was shocked that the Grand Marshal took the initiative to toast him because of this matter. Sun Lang gulped down the bowl of wine, wiped his mouth, and took 2 deep breaths. Then, he gently patted his chest and said, "Ah, I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death." Lu Shoyan's expression was strange, but his hands were not slow. He immediately picked up the wine bottle beside him and filled Sun Lang's bowl. As he poured the wine, he praised, "The Grand Marshal loves his family. This is rare in the world. I'm impressed." After Sun Lang regained his composure, he nodded his head vigorously. "Yes, old Lu, you're still the most reasonable one. I wasn't running away. I was protecting them. Think about it. They were so overbearing. How could I give in again and again? If I don't, they'll argue, and if the argument gets worse, I'll beat them. But it's not good to beat women." Lu Zhou felt his bones lighten when he heard Lu Shoyan call him Old Lu. Hu Shouxin was unwise, and Qi Guanyin was inexperienced. After all, they were just ruffians who fought with swords and spears on the battlefield. How could they compare to his eyesight, which had been tempered by countless cruel political struggles since he was in the censorate? He nodded happily and said, "Yes, yes, yes. As men, we won't lower ourselves to the level of women. Otherwise, with the Grand Marshal's invincible might, you'll only need to shake your body to make them obedient." Sun Lang laughed and drank another bowl of wine with Lu Shoyan. However, after drinking, he became depressed again. He threw the bowl on the table and said with a sigh, "What's the point of talking about this? The hatchet is already pointed at my back." It was time for Lord Lu to show his loyalty. He placed his wine bowl on the table and said solemnly, "I'm willing to share your burdens. I'll go through fire and water without hesitation." Sun Lang rolled his eyes. "Do you have any good ideas? What kind of joke was this?" This was a dead end. Little Sister Lin and Big Sister Bao were over there. Mingzhou was starting to suspect something. "I can escape for a while, but can I escape forever?" Lu Zhou's spirits were lifted. He said solemnly, "Don't panic, Marshal. You're just worried. This matter isn't as serious as it seems. Please listen to my explanation." He dipped his finger into the wine bowl and drew a horizontal line on the table, just like the boundary between the Chu River and the Han River, dividing the factions. There were several dishes on the table. Lord Lu picked up a few peanuts from the plate and placed them on the table. "These are the women from Mingzhou." After placing the peanuts on the table, he felt that something was amiss. He thought about it for a moment before he picked up a few more peanuts and placed them on the table. Then, he nodded in satisfaction. He counted the peanuts and discovered there were 9 of them. 9 plump peanuts wrapped in red seed skins were lying quietly on the table. But in Sun Lang's eyes, this was undoubtedly full of sarcasm and ridicule. Who did this bastard count as one of them? Why are there so many? However, this was not the main point. The main point was F***CK. 1. All. None. F***CK. Over. Lord Lu was unaware of Sun Lang's grief and indignation. After placing the peanuts on the table, he thought for a moment before he picked up 3 more peanuts and placed them on the table opposite him. "These are for the Imperial Envoy." Sun Lang reached out and crushed one of the peanuts into powder. There are only 2 of them. Lu Shoyan was shocked when he saw Sun Lang's gaze. He lowered his head and said, "Death penalty, death penalty. It's fine." Sun Lang swept the powder of the peanuts to the side. "Let's continue." It looked like Empress had indeed played an extremely dishonorable role in the Battle of Da Huang Mountain. It was to the extent that the marshal did not care about their old friendship at all. There was no possibility of reconciliation. In other words, Tensei province was an enemy. Sai, why bother? If I were His Majesty, I would have made someone like the marshal the prince consort, Lu Shoyin muttered to himself in his heart, but his hands did not slow down at all. After he placed the Azura battlefield maps on both sides, he said what the marshal is worried about right now is nothing more than the reunion of old friends in the south, the pressure of the women in the north, General Shui and General Lin finding out that you're still alive, and Miss Zhao and the others finding clues. Sun Lang nodded vigorously. Yes, this is all the world's fault. I think it's all the marshal's fault. Lu Shoyin cursed in his heart, but in the officialdom, one's ass was always more important than one's head. Although he felt that Sun Lang's behavior was not very appropriate, he still said, although Ms. Zhang and the others were very anxious tonight, after all, it was only coercion. They did not have any real evidence, nor did they have an excuse to act out. At most, they were just a little bit angry. A man of indomitable spirit should just tolerate them. Speaking of this, there was a trace of sigh in his voice. He must have thought of his own experience. This was also a bit of his life experience. When his wife suspected him of visiting a brothel or hooking up with women, he really clenched his teeth and did not let go, no matter what the other party threatened or tempted him. As for words like, if my husband has taken a fancy to any girl, as your wife, I can personally go and talk to you. Every word, all, no, can, believe. Lu Shoyin wanted to build a closer relationship with the leader and create an atmosphere of mutual hatred for the enemy. He also talked about his embarrassing and painful experiences. In the end, he concluded, in short, we must not shed tears until we see the coffin. However, although Lord Lu had a lot of experience in fighting, he was still naive and did not understand his superior very well. After he spoke of the shocking changes in the harem, after he hooked up with a prostitute and took a concubine, not only did he not receive the marshal's sympathy, but a biting cold light flashed in Sun Lang's eyes. Lu Shoyin did not notice. After he finished speaking, he continued, therefore, the young ladies in Mingzhou have not found any substantial evidence yet. You must stand firm and not waver. In my opinion, you should not go back for the next 2 days. In the past, I often used the excuse of being busy with work to hide outside for a few days. This is a necessary strategy and skill. Sun Lang nodded and said, we can't always hide, right? Lu Shoyin showed a smile that all men understood. Isn't that so? We need to do something in the next few days. Marshal, please allow me to report. This time, Miss Zhao and the others are causing trouble. In the end, it was the Empress concubine who brought Second General Lin and Shui here. Regardless of rumors or news, the key to solving this situation lies in the south. He pointed at the 2 peanuts on Chu He's side. Sun Lang's eyes flashed with a hint of understanding. You mean, Lu Shoyin said firmly, in the next 2 days, we need to gather all our strength and solve the matter of the imperial envoy going to Mingzhou as quickly as possible. Then, we will send General Lin and General Shui back. When the time comes, the imperial envoy will be gone. If Ms. Zhang and the others want to make trouble, they will need a place to talk. Good idea. Sun Lang slammed the table and then said awkwardly, wait, since they found out that I'm still alive, why would they be willing to go back? They will definitely do everything possible to stay. Lu Shoyin said with a smile, Marshal, you are confused because you are too concerned. Don't you have as many ways to coax the 2 generals back temporarily? If you reach a consensus with Empress this time, the imperial court will definitely give you an explanation. After all, how can they not give you a reward for your past meritorious deeds? The imperial capital will not let it go and will definitely compete with you again. This humble official boldly guesses that you have already made preparations to go south. He winked. The dignified governor of Mingzhou had completely turned into a dog-headed military advisor. He suggested in a low voice, for example, you can reach a consensus with Empress and let Empress take the 2 generals back temporarily in the name of going back to report. Or You can ask the two generals to go south first and return to Rongwa Mansion to announce this good news to your family. The smile on Sun Lang's face froze. Lu Shoyin knew that something was wrong. He quickly lowered his head and said, "What did this humble official say wrong?" Sun Lang slowly shook his head. "No, you are right. You said it very well. Was the marshal not willing to go back? Was he afraid of being a burden to his family? That didn't make sense. No matter what, he was the legitimate son of Rongwa Mansion. Whether it was a rebellion, a tyrant, or a power overturning the imperial court, everything was related to Rongwa Mansion's honor and disgrace. How could he be a burden to his family? Moreover, Rongwa Mansion had been greatly favored by the emperor in recent years. They had been rewarded a lot, and their family business was large enough to help the marshal. Not to mention other things, just the title of duke was very useful. Moreover, the return of the legitimate son of Rongwa Mansion could revive the lifeless Ningwa Mansion. Back then, the Jiao Mansion had two dukes. How glorious was it in the imperial court? Lu Shoyin didn't know the story and was a bit confused. However, he didn't ask too much. He continued, "As long as General Lin and General Shui can be sent back so that Miss Zhang and the others can't use it against you, you will be as stable as Mount Tai. When the two generals return to the south, you will follow them and meet up with them. Then, won't you be able to do whatever you want?" Sun Lang couldn't help but reveal a mysterious smile as he listened to Lord Lu's wonderful description. He nodded repeatedly. That makes sense, that makes sense. I didn't expect Lord Lu to be so experienced. Marshal, you praise me too much. Lu Zhou cupped his fists and said, "This matter shouldn't be delayed any longer. Things might change if we delay. It's better to act now before the two sides recover from their shock. Right now, Miss Zhao and the others are only suspicious. I'm afraid General Lin and the others are still ignorant about your situation. Marshal, it's better to act now." Sun Lang nodded heavily. "Roar. Success or failure depends on this." He waved his hand and grabbed all the peanuts in an imposing manner. Then he stuffed them into his mouth and chewed before swallowing them. Lord Lu had a look of reverence on his face. He cupped his fists and bowed again. "Marshal, you're heroic." Then the two of them began to drink and eat again as they flattered each other. Sun Lang laughed heartily from time to time as though victory was in his hands and the situation was already decided. Those troublesome women had all been devoured by him. However, he and Lu Zhou did not notice that the crushed peanut that represented the crown princess was still on the ground. It was drifting in the air with the breeze in the hall. Chapter 546. A man, a harem man, was wandering in the sky above Ming Province. The jet engine, handmade by the fire priests and inscribed with countless fire runes, spat out blazing streams of flame and propelled the blazing angel combat equipment into the night sky. Sun Lang controlled the strongest combat weapon of the Lihua Kingdom. Looking down at the dark land below, he couldn't help but feel a bit sad. At this moment, a question appeared in his mind. Why the F*CK did I forget to summon the blazing angel when I was being chased around by Sister Lin and Sister Bao? Not only do I have a F*King gun, I can also fly. Shameful, truly shameful. I actually forgot to fly. He sighed and turned his head to look at Ming Province. Then, he flew toward the south. Suddenly, his heart moved faintly. He felt that he seemed to have overlooked something important. However, in the next instant, his mind was filled with all kinds of tactical deductions. In short, the most important thing right now was to deal with that woman and avoid this disaster. Yes, there was no problem with Lu Shoyin's plan. Sending away the source of the problem as quickly as possible was the right thing to do. As for Sister Bao and Sister Lin, the future was long. The future was long. After all, since he had already made his choice, he would have to face this Rongwa family sooner or later. In the Imperial Envoy camp, His Highness Empress had long been rescued. Rather than saying that he was rescued, it was more accurate to say that the anxious generals had finally discovered His Highness Empress and Generals Lin and Shui in the wilderness. Everyone secretly let out a sigh of relief. Then, as usual, They all apologized in unison. Empress naturally absolved everyone of any blame. She only asked the generals to go back and restrain their subordinates and strictly keep it a secret. Of course, this was a reasonable order. Sealing off information and prohibiting discussion had been the ruling treasure of the Zhao family since ancient times. However, it was a bit different this time. The generals secretly let out strange smiles. The kidnapping this time was too bizarre, and there was even a hint of gossip. After all, the kidnapper who had kidnapped the heavenly strategy princess in front of everyone seemed to be inextricably linked to General Lin and General Shui. Many people had even heard General Shui call him husband with their own ears. There were even more explosive statements such as, "If you want to marry Empress, we can talk about it." These jubilant and gossipy news also diluted the political undertones of this kidnapping incident so that everyone would not be anxious. The lower-ranked generals who were not well-informed were still dumbfounded. Wasn't General Shui a widow? Why did she have a husband? That man is still entangled with Empress? On the other hand, the second generation of the family, whose elders were relatively strong, were somewhat uncertain. Their eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. Shui Baochai's husband? That's fucking not. However, there was at least one point that everyone agreed on. Whether it was those who knew or those who didn't, everyone felt that at least Qian Biao was fine. Qian Biao was Qian Yuan Shuang, the nephew of the kidnapper. Similarly, in front of everyone's eyes, he shouted that the kidnapper was old uncle. He was actually so stupid and magnanimous. Fortunately, his father had good relationships with people. The imperial envoy guards were complicated and didn't have much loyalty to the princess. Moreover, this matter was too strange. Otherwise, this idiot would have been hacked to death by everyone at the first moment. But now, Her Highness Empress, who had been pressed down on a horse by the kidnapper and had heard the words uncle, only glanced at Qian Yuan Shuang. After a huff, she did not say anything else. There was not even a hint of anger on her face. This made people's imaginations run wild. It was clear that General Tensei did not intend to pursue this matter with his nephew. Many of the generals who knew the inside story looked at Qian Yuan Shuang with more and more profound gazes. There was envy and jealousy. Damn, how did this bastard manage to latch onto someone powerful? Did his father have a good relationship with that person? However, Qian Yuan Shuang, who had become the center of everyone's attention, did not have a pleased expression. Instead, he revealed a worried expression. He rubbed his hands together and looked at Empress's back. He seemed to be hesitating about something. After returning to the camp, Empress said a few simple words of encouragement. She then had the generals strengthen the defense and disperse on their own. Then, under the escort of the reassembled internal guards, she walked toward the large central tent. Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai followed behind her without any hesitation. Qian Yuan Shuang gazed at their backs. It seemed that there was an intense struggle in his heart. A general who usually got along well with him walked to his side as if nothing had happened. He patted his shoulder and said in a low voice, "I couldn't tell. Old Qian, you actually made contact with this person. My uncle also has a good relationship with that person. Before coming here, he told me to act according to the situation. Tonight, I'll go sit at your place." Qian Yuan Shuang revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. "It's better if you don't come. I don't want to drag you down." That person jumped in fright. Although they were not life and death brothers, because of the relationship between their fathers, their relationship was not bad. From a young age, he knew Qian Yuan Shuang's personality, so he did not feel that he was evading. In a low voice, he said, "What's going on? Could it be that you're worried that Empress Concubine will kill you? With that person here, what are you afraid of? Your father is not made of paper. Furthermore, we were only sent to protect the imperial envoy. We are not directly under her command in Tensei province. If she wants to kill you, she has to look at your father and that person's face." Qian Yuan Shuang sighed and waved his hand. "This matter is very difficult to explain to you clearly." He seemed to have made up his mind. Just as he was about to chase after them, he heard his friend beside him say, "Hey, isn't that General Lin's snake spear? Speaking of which, why is His Highness wearing General Lin's armor?" and General Lin wearing His Highness's golden armor. What kind of trick were they playing before? Hearing this, Qian Si Biao's spirit was roused. He turned his head to look and saw an officer carrying a snake spear running forward. He immediately ran over. "Hey, I am Qian Yuan Shuang of the Zhenwu camp. I was just about to go see General Lin. Give me your snake spear, I'll pass it on for you." He patted his body and turned his head to his friend. "Hey, help me pay." Then, without any explanation, he snatched the snake's spear from the officer's hand and eagerly chased after them. The general didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at his friend's back. He turned his head to look at the officer. The officer had a miserable expression that said, F***CK, someone stole my credit. He took out a few golden leaves from his bosom and stuffed them into the officer's hand. He warmly said, "Don't look. General Lin is famous for not being easy to talk to. If you want to use this method to make her think highly of you and even obtain a promotion, there's not much hope. If you were entrusted by your general to deliver this weapon, then your general should take it easy. This famous flower has an owner. Be careful not to be pressed to the ground and beaten to death." The officer came back to his senses and bowed. "I wasn't entrusted by the general. It's just that, all right, you seem to be a clever person. If you want to change the situation, it's just that you used the wrong method. My friend has a straightforward personality, so don't blame him. If you have the heart, when this matter is over, you can come find me with these golden leaves. I am willing to give clever people a chance. It depends on your performance." The officer was startled when he heard this. He then bowed and said, "May I ask for the general's name?" "Xie Xian." The young man smiled. "Xie Xian of the North Mansion." Nephew Qian didn't know the story that happened over there. He held Lin Dayu's snake spear and jogged the entire way, following behind them at a distance that wasn't too far too close. It wasn't until the group of people reached the central camp that Shui Baochai and Lin Dayu followed the emperor's concubine into the large tent that he slowly poked his head out. He swallowed his saliva and dragged the snake spear closer. He shouted from afar, "Badu Qian Yuan Shuang, the commanding general of Zhenwu camp, requests to see Instructor Lin. Please pass on my message." Although the guards were the elite internal guards of Tensei province, they didn't dare to be impudent to the commanding general of a camp. After all, this camp was full of the elites of the 6 armies. They all had great backgrounds. They looked at each other and said politely to nephew Qian Yuan Shuang, "General, please wait a moment." Then one of them carefully leaned against the tent door and reported in a low voice. A moment later, the tent door opened. Lin Dayu, still wearing Empress's golden armor, walked out proudly. When she saw Qian Yuan Shuang, she walked over and said in a cold voice, "Give it back." Qian Yuan Shuang hurriedly returned the snake's spear to the ante in front of him. Lin Dayu took the spear. A smile appeared on her face, but it quickly disappeared. She looked at Nephew Gu and softened her tone. "Is there anything else?" Yes. Nephew Qian Yuan Shuang nodded and bowed. Then he said in a low voice, "It's about my uncle." "Your uncle?" Lin Dayu said. "Your husband." Qian Yuan Shuang didn't dare to say that. He said in a low voice, Lin Dayu's eyes lit up. She said in surprise, "Brother, you've seen him?" In an instant, the girl's smile became very bright. Qian Yuan Shuang couldn't help but stop breathing. He quickly lowered his head and said, "Yes, my uncle came to see me before. Is he okay? He didn't lose weight, right? Is he smiling happily? Is there something on his mind?" This barrage of questions was rare for the taciturn General Lin. Qian Yuan Shuang couldn't handle it and said in a low voice, "Auntie, we didn't see him before." The word auntie made Lin Dayu's smile brighten. Then her eyes dimmed and she sighed. "I saw him. He didn't say much to me and left." Qian Yuan Shuang's voice changed. "Left?" Lin Dayu looked at him strangely. "What's wrong?" Nephew Qian Yuan Shuang shook his head. "No, nothing, no." Sister Lin's eyes turned sharp. "You're lying. You're afraid. What are you afraid of? Are you here to pry for information? Why are you afraid of my brother?" "This Annie is amazing. I'm afraid my uncle won't be able to cheat in the future." Qian Yuan Shuang saw that he couldn't deny it and said in a low voice, I'm afraid my uncle will beat me." When I asked him to rein in the horse, he seemed very angry. He wanted me to stop General Shui, but I didn't dare to charge forward. With his temper, he'll definitely come back for revenge. Just as he was feeling sad, a gust of wind blew in his face. Then he felt a pain in his calf. Nephew Qian Yuanshuang hurriedly took a step back in pain. He asked in shock, "Why did you hit me?" Lin Daiyu raised her snake spear. Her face had already changed. "Because my brother wants to hit you." Chapter 547. Once upon a time, Nephew Qian was also hit by his uncle's love. It was similar to when his mother hit him again. That uncle was really relying on his seniority, military rank, military exploits, and martial arts skills. He would hit him on the head as if he was hitting his grandson. At that time, Nephew Qian wasn't happy, saying that even his father didn't hit him that much, but it was useless. His uncle hit him whenever he wanted, and he always felt that his uncle had a tendency to be violent. Now, he knew that if you weren't a family, you wouldn't enter the same house. It was as if you were beaten up by your father and ran to your mother crying and complaining that your father hit you. In the end, your mother gave you a strong slap. You must have made a mistake if he hit you. Speak. Mixed doubles, domestic violence, parental hegemony, bloodline dictatorship, and the poison of feudal patriarchal rule. He was caught off guard and was hit by his ant snake spear. Nephew Qian didn't dare to fight back and could only beg for mercy while blocking. Seeing that it wasn't a problem, he turned around and ran. How could this be reasonable? He ran for a while, and when he saw that Lin Daiyu didn't chase after him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then he remembered the threat from Sun Lang, and his mood became even more melancholic and depressed. He walked back unhappily. As he walked, he lowered his head in thought. Because he wasn't looking at the road, he suddenly bumped into someone at the next corner. Both of them didn't seem to have eyes, so they bumped into each other. We have to understand one thing, and that is that in the Hodo Empire, there is no such thing as running down the road with bread in your mouth on the first day of school and bumping into a transfer student at the corner, resulting in both of them falling to the ground and the girl's underwear being seen. Qian Yuanshuang bumped into the person in front of him, and the lower body kung fu that he had trained since he was young was activated instinctively. His legs seemed to be rooted to the ground, and he stood out steadily. However, the person in front of him was doing the same thing. Thus, the two of them were pressed against each other at a very dangerous distance. Their bodies were in danger, their heads were in danger, their faces were in danger, and their lips were in danger. The two of them looked at each other in confusion, and they could even feel the hot breath from each other's thick nostrils. The two of them froze for a moment, and then jumped back 3 steps at the same time. Fortunately, this humiliating scene was not seen by anyone. The person who bumped into Qian Yuanshuang was the first to come back to his senses. He glanced at Qian Yuanshuang's armor and took the initiative to apologize. My apologies, my apologies. I have offended General Qian." Although Nephew Gu was displeased, he didn't pursue the matter. He waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Do you know me?" The man dressed like a scholar cupped his hands and saluted. "I am Lu Yiwu, the meritorious officer of Tensei Province. Greetings to General Qian." General Qian is from the elite of the 8 capitals and leads the Zhenwu camp. "I have admired you for a long time." So he was an official of Tensei Province. After the two of them exchanged some pleasantries, the unpleasantness from before disappeared without a trace. Qian Yuanshuang had a lot on his mind. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly saw a pained expression on Lu Sanjuan's face. He took a closer look and saw that there were a few bruises on this guy's face. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Lu Kanjun." This is Lu Yiwu's face revealed an unbearable expression. He sighed and said, "When a city gate is on fire, the fish in the moat will suffer. I was beaten up by the person who entered the camp." Sigh. He was really unreasonable. I only said it wasn't me, and he actually flew into a rage and beat me up. Qian Yuanshuang shook his head and sighed. He patted Lu Yiwu's shoulder and comforted him. Fortunately, Lu Sanjuan's injuries aren't serious. For martial artists like us, minor injuries are nothing. Sigh. Lu Kanjun has already been beaten up. No matter how he offended my old uncle, this matter has already come to an end. And the unknown is the scariest thing. Just like me. Sigh. I don't know when that old man will be beaten up. It's better to be beaten up than to be on tenterhooks right now. Lu Yiwu noticed the melancholy on General Qian's face. His eyes flashed as he asked, "Pardon me for asking, but there's a hesitant look on your face. Is there something on your mind?" Nephew Gu's eyes turned cold. He said cautiously, "It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. Goodbye." "General, wait." Lu Qinjun reached out to stop him. He whispered, "Is it because of that person who can't be named?" Qian Yunshuang glanced at him and said coldly, "I don't know what you're talking about." He turned to leave, but Lu Sanjuan's figure moved again and blocked his path. With the fastest speed, he said, "I know this is a serious matter, but General Qian, please don't lie to me. After this official woke up, I also heard about this matter. The person who kidnapped the Emperor's concubine, you clearly called him uncle." Nephew Gu grew impatient. "That's my biological uncle, my grandfather's brother. How do you become someone who can't be named? Move aside. I'm going back to the camp to rest." Lu Qinjun didn't seem to have given up. He looked around cautiously and whispered, "I know this is a serious matter, and it's normal for a general to be on guard. But for the sake of the Emperor's safety, please pass on a few words for me. Just a few words will do." Nephew Gu rolled his eyes. "Go to hell. I can't even protect myself, and you still want to pass on a message," Lu Yiwu said anxiously. "It's just a few words." "What danger is there?" Qian Yuanshuang wanted to push this fellow away, but he saw a hand in the next moment. A hand had reached out from the darkness and pressed down on Lu Sanjuan's head. It slammed him to the ground. With a bang, Lu Sanjuan's entire body fell to the ground. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted again. Everything happened too quickly. A mysterious man appeared out of nowhere and flexed his wrists as he snorted. "Someone who can't be named yet. Are you satisfied now that you've become the prostrate membrane?" He then looked up and asked Qian Yuanshuang, "Who's this idiot?" Nephew Gu was startled for a moment before he revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. "Uncle, you're back." Sun Lang kicked Lu Yiwu to the side impatiently. "You still haven't answered my question." He said he's an official from Tensei Province. "His name is Lu Yiwu." Qian Yuanshuang replied carefully. "I think he was beaten up by you before." Sun Lang turned to look at Lu Qinjun on the ground. He thought for a moment, then said unhappily, "Damn, so it's him. The bastard who made fun of me before. Damn, he's pretty good at taking a beating." "Wait, didn't this fellow only say it wasn't me? Why did he make fun of me?" Before Qian Yuanshuang could speak up for the poor official Lu, he saw his uncle looking at him with a sinister expression. He instantly understood the meaning behind his uncle's gaze. Obviously, in his uncle's eyes, he was also one of the bastards who made fun of me before. "You really can't blame me for that," he said in a low voice. "I didn't even meet General Shui. How could I have stopped her?" Sun Lang glared at him for a while, then rolled his eyes. "Let's go. We'll talk about it in your camp." Talk about what? Of course it's for you to redeem yourself. I'm telling you, if you mess this up again, you won't be able to avoid a canned herring enema." "Got it." "Uncle, what's canned herring? And what's an enema?" "It's a type of Western canned food. The taste is very unique." "Well, word or no proof. I happen to have one here. Stick your head over and I'll let you smell it." Oh, at the same time, in the command tent. Lin Dayu opened the door of the tent and walked in. She leaned the snake spear in her hand to the side. Shui Baochai had already taken off her helmet and armor, revealing the original face of a woman. She was born with smooth skin and bones. Her behavior was elegant and dignified. Without makeup, she had a natural temperament. Her lips were red without any makeup, and her eyebrows were green without any makeup. She was like a fairy that walked out of a painting. People who didn't know her would be shocked by her beauty. They would think that she was a gentle and virtuous lady from a noble family. Sister Bao turned her head and said with a smile, "So you're here to give me a weapon. Why did you hit me? Quickly go to the back and change your golden armor. This is His Highness armor. It's not something that can be used by ordinary people." Lin Dayu coldly glanced at Empress, who was sitting in the main seat. The woman also took off her armor and changed into a fiery red robe. Although her appearance was comparable to Shue Baochai's, her temperament was completely different. If Shue Baochai was the ethereal and elegant snow, then she was the blazing and tyrannical flame that burned everything. She was high and mighty, and between her eyebrows was full of the arrogance of the Hodu royal family. She was Empress Tensei, one of the most powerful women in the world. She was the most beloved daughter of His Majesty. She was even a strong competitor for the crown prince. She would even become the first empress of this dynasty. Younger sister Lin glanced at Shue Baochai again. Under the empress concubine's fiery might, Shue Baochai still maintained her calm and unruffled bearing. The two of them actually maintained a subtle and peaceful atmosphere. It was as if the slap Shue Baochai had given her out of anger had never happened. So, Sister Bao had a secret in her heart. She didn't show it on the surface, but she thought more than anyone else. She secretly snorted in her heart. Brother said that he liked girls who were frank, straightforward, and not scheming. You probably didn't know. Of course, Shue Baochai didn't know. She only knew that Sun Lang liked girls who were quick-witted and intelligent. Sister Lin came to the compartment behind the tent. This huge central tent was divided into several parts. There was a living area at the back, which was convenient for Empress to live. After Lin Daiyu changed her clothes and came out, Shue Baochai asked, "That was General Qian of Zhenwu camp, right? Why did you hit him?" Lin Daiyu snorted, "He offended my brother. Of course, I had to hit him." Before Shue Baochai said anything, Empress said, "Humph, offended? You even called him uncle. Offended him? Perhaps your brother is in the Zhenwu camp's military camp right now." Chapter 548. Hearing this, Lin Daiyu, who had just sat down, stood up again. "What did you say?" Shue Baochai stretched out her hand and held Sister Lin's hand to calm her down. Then she turned her head and asked softly, "Why do you say that, Your Highness? Has our husband come back?" Lin Daiyu snorted, "Liar, after my brother comes back, he will definitely look for us first." Empress snorted disdainfully. "You? Are you kidding? I've seen this kind of thing many times in the imperial capital. Let's not talk about other things. The two of you are also born in a big family. Why don't you think about it? After your uncles and brothers did something wrong, would they obediently go home and accept their punishment, or would they go and discuss it with their friends?" Sister Lin and Sister Bao looked at each other and then said coldly, "My brother is a man of indomitable spirit. He won't do anything wrong, unlike some people who set others up and then set themselves up. Even ghosts and gods will know." Empress's face darkened, and his eyes became sharp. Lin Daiyu looked at him boldly. After a long while, Empress sneered, "I think you two have been blinded by joy. Didn't you see his performance just now? If he has a clear conscience, why didn't he happily acknowledge you? Why did he run away in a panic? Why did he float away? He clearly has a guilty conscience." As soon as his voice fell, Shue Baochai also stood up, looked at Empress, and said calmly, "Even if my husband has difficulties in his heart, I'm afraid it can't be separated from His Highness. He disappeared mysteriously and drifted outside for 2 years. I don't think I need to say who the person who separated us for 2 years is. My husband wanted to kill His Highness before, but we arrived and let him spare His Highness's life. He had made up his mind to kill His Highness and gave up halfway. Wasn't it for us? Based on this point alone, I already know. Since the relationship between husband and wife exists, there's nothing that can't be solved when the whole family sits down and talks." Shue Baochai said lightly, "Outsiders don't need to worry about our Jia family's domestic affairs." Empress was furious at first, but in the end, his anger actually calmed down and turned into mockery and disdain. "Oh, the Jia family. The Jia family is so good." Hearing this, Shue Baochai's expression changed slightly, and her tone became cold. "What does Your Highness Empress want to say? Why don't you say it directly? Why do you have to be so secretive and vague?" Empress laughed and said, "This is your family's business. How can an outsider like me interfere? If you really want to know, why don't you pull him over and have your family sit down and talk?" The two women looked at each other. and there seemed to be invisible electric sparks in the air. After a long while, Shue Baochai took a deep breath and revealed a gentle smile. She said, "Your Highness is right, but this is a family matter. Unlike other people who can't distinguish between public and private matters, our family is used to dealing with public matters before private matters. Before resolving private matters, our family will first come to greet your Highness." Empress lowered his eyes and said calmly, "I'll wait." Shue Baochai took Lin Daiyu's hand and said, "Then forgive us for leaving first." Empress's expression changed, and she looked up at them. "Where are you going?" Shue Baochai said calmly, "Of course we're going back to the camp to reorganize the troops and calm the people down. Then we'll tidy up the bed and wait for our husband to come back. This is a woman's duty." "Why do your Highness ask this question?" If this big sister Bao was angry, every word would be filled with thorns. All of her words seemed to have hidden meanings, making people speechless. The emperor's concubine couldn't hold it in any longer and shouted, "Shue Baochai." General Shue blinked. "Your Highness, what else do you want? Your mission is not over yet. You have to stay here and be responsible for protecting me." Shue Baochai pursed her lips and said, "At this time, the camp is heavily guarded. The internal guards of Tensei Province are loyal and good at fighting. Moreover, your Highness and my husband have turned hostility into friendship. What danger can there be in this camp? Your Highness will definitely be safe. Will there be any blind thieves who will make things difficult for your Highness?" Although this woman's words weren't as aggressive as Sun Lang's, they weren't much worse than him. "You know full well that once you two leave, Sun Lang will come to deal with me unscrupulously. You're threatening me. You're showing off to me, right?" She stared coldly at Shue Baochai. She was very angry, but she couldn't say something embarrassing like, "You two should stay. Otherwise, your husband will bully me, so I'm very scared." She could only use military law and military order to suppress them. "Whether you need guards or not is not up to you. It's up to me." Shue Baochai smiled and said, "Then your Highness, please find someone else. There are many talents in the camp, and they are all famous generals. They are far better than us sisters. We have something important to do, so we'll take a leave." Empress was dissatisfied. "What do you have to do?" Shue Baochai still smiled gently. "My husband is here to visit. Of course, I have to sleep with him." Empress finally couldn't help but shout, "Shue Baochai." General Shue cupped his hands and said, "Your Highness, if you think a lowly general is wrong, please punish him according to military law. This guy, other people have their own soldiers, but you have your own king husband. Do you really think that I can't punish you just because you have your husband behind you?" So Shue Baochai and Lin Daiyu went in again and put on their armor. Then they cupped their hands and saluted Empress. Then they swaggered back. The emperor concubine looked at the tent door and gritted her teeth in anger. She held the Tianyuan blade and really wanted to slash randomly to vent her anger. However, she quickly became paranoid. She looked at the surroundings, especially at the repaired tent roof. She was a bit jittery, as if every tree and bush was an enemy. She was afraid that Sun Lang would appear again. He wouldn't come back so soon, right? Thinking of Sun Lang's ability to make her have a very strange reaction as long as he touched her body. Thinking of this, she felt her face become hot, and the hatred in her heart became stronger. Then, she felt that her body was sticky and uncomfortable. Although she took off her armor and changed into a robe, Lin Daiyu and Lin Daiyu were there at that time. She didn't have a reason to take a bath immediately. She couldn't say that she was touched by their husbands. Now, she felt quite uncomfortable. Out of the nature of a beauty, she really wanted to take a bath. But she didn't dare to take a bath at all. Completely. No, because there was a perverted shadow wolf who could suddenly appear at any time. If he broke in while she was taking a bath, everything would be over. So, poor Empress held the Tianyuan saber and stood in the tent. Feeling the discomfort on her body, she endured the hesitation in her heart and was very unhappy. After a while, She made up her mind. She gritted her teeth and said, someone come. The response of the internal guard came from outside. I'm here. Empress hesitated for a moment and then said angrily, go and see which camp General Lin and General Shui went to. The person outside took the order and was very efficient. Soon, he came back and reported, Your Highness, the two generals went to the camp of the Soaring Eagle Army. Humph, this cunning woman. Empress said coldly, pass down the order. I'm going to visit the two generals in the Soaring Eagle Army. You guys get ready. By the way, ask the female guards to prepare some incense, flower petals, hot water, and other toiletries. The two generals are girls. They will like this kind of reward. On the other side, Sister Bao and Sister Lin were escorted to the Soaring Eagle Army by the guards. On the way, Lin Daiyu's sharp eyes looked in a direction in the distance. That's the Jinwu camp, right? According to the Empire's military law, the guards of female generals were all female soldiers. Originally, there was a difference between men and women. Female guards not only had an easier time protecting the general, but they also didn't feel awkward taking care of the general's daily life. At this time, a guard said, General, that's where the Jinwu camp of the Badu army is located. The general is General Qian Yuanshuang, the son of the sea dragon, King Qin Miao. Lin Daiyu turned to look at Shui Baochai. She didn't say anything, but her meaning was obvious. Empress said before that someone might be in the Jinwu camp now. Sister Bao understood her meaning, but shook her head and said, Let's not go. If he doesn't want to see us, we can't stop him. Chasing and escaping like this will delay his business. Besides, that woman just said it casually. It can't be true. If we go rashly, General Qian will feel awkward. Lin Daiyu nodded and asked. She also said that brother did something wrong. Shui Baochai said gently, How can that be? How can someone like him do something wrong? He's just talking nonsense. Lin Daiyu nodded. However, she didn't see that Shui Baochai quietly clench her fist. Something wrong. Could it be that he was outside? At this time, Sun Lang and Qian Yuanshuang had just entered the Jinwu camp. This showed another problem. In order to prevent Sun Lang from weakening her wings, Empress Concubine didn't mobilize the elites of Heavenly Policy Hall's direct line of command. Instead, she mobilized elites from the 6 armies. These soldiers were loyal and devoted, and their battle prowess wasn't ordinary. When they fought, they weren't inferior to Heavenly Policy Hall's elites. However, there were many problems. For example, if they were to choose between their general and empress, they would definitely choose the former. Therefore, these Jinwu camp soldiers who were from the Badu army and loyal to the Sea Dragon King didn't react at all when they saw their general bring back a familiar uninvited guest. Sun Lang had just entered the camp when he suddenly shivered. Who the F***CK is thinking about me? Qian Yuanshuang pulled him back. Although the Jinwu camp was undoubtedly loyal, it wouldn't be good if the soldiers of the other camp saw them by chance. They still had to put on a show and quickly enter the camp. By the way, General Qian's complexion wasn't good, as if he had just eaten shit. As soon as the two of them entered the tent, they immediately saw a gentle and elegant young man sitting in the middle of the tent. Both sides were stunned. Qian Yuanshuang was shocked and subconsciously wanted to kill him. When he saw the appearance of the person, he first heaved a sigh of relief, then stared and said, Why are you here? The young man didn't answer. When he saw Sun Lang, he immediately knelt on the ground and said loudly, Nephew Xie Xian greets uncle. Hey, Qian Yuanshuang shouted. Bastard, you even want to fight with me over uncle? Chapter 549. Hey, Qian Yuanshuang shouted. Bastard, you're even going to fight with me over my uncle? Xie Xian was displeased. What do you mean even your uncle is going to fight with you over your uncle? What did I steal from you? Nephew Gu raged. You stole my candy cake when we were 5. Didn't you steal my ironwood sword too? You even stole my money when we were 15. F***CK, Qian Sibiao, there's no point in saying that. Why are we bros talking about such hurtful things? Didn't you steal my fangirl too? Did I mention that? Bullsh**T. You're bringing it up now? You're fighting with me even after joining the army. You're inhumane. F***CKU. Why don't you say that your wife fell in love with you because I put on an act for you? You have the face to say that? I wanted to see your sister back then, but I was chased and beaten up by your grandson. The argument quickly went off the rails and turned into exposing each other's dark history. Sun Lang listened with great interest for a while before suddenly asking Xie Xian, "Old friend, you have a sister?" Nephew Gu jumped up and shouted, "That's right, uncle. They have a lot of family members, and their father can give birth, so they have many sisters. The prettiest one is called Xie Dao." Xie Xian exploded and kicked Qian Yuanshuang to the side. He then revealed a flattering smile and said submissively, "Uncle, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. You do have 4 nieces. You'll be able to see them when you come to Wui Alley as a guest in the future." Qian Yuanshuang was furious and got up to fight with Xie Xian. Sun Lang was a straight man and hated to see people fall. He gestured for them to stop. "Stop, friend, stop." As expected, the two of them stopped. After all, even though the person in front of them was about the same age as them, he was a figure that their fathers spoke of as high as a mountain. To them, the descendants of military families who enjoyed the protection of their families, their fathers who supported their families were already godlike figures, let alone a person whom they wholeheartedly admired. Sun Lang looked at Xie Xian and asked in a pleasant tone, "Is your house in Wui Alley?" Xie Xian replied respectfully, "Yes. Who is Xie to you?" Xie Xian answered honestly, "It is my father." "Oh, does your father still drink?" "I don't drink much now." "Oh." Sun Lang nodded and said, "So you're still drinking? You don't know how many times your father, a drunkard, was beaten by me because he wanted to get me to drink with him." "Ah, forget it. So, Xian is your uncle?" At the mention of Xian, Xie Xian revealed a look of admiration. He said even more respectfully, "Yes." Sun Lang asked casually, "Is your uncle still flying leaves?" Xie Xian was puzzled. "What do you mean by flying leaves?" "Taking drugs. Don't you understand?" Sun Lang smiled kindly. "Your uncle didn't tell you, did he?" "Last time, he got high with a bunch of idiots, and I anonymously reported it to Kong Mu in the military. At that time, a bunch of idiots who took off their clothes to release the drug were running for their lives while being chased by a bunch of military judges with chains and sticks. It was truly a marvelous scene in the Celestial Origins sector. He was quite excited when he talked about it. After the incident, your uncle and the others tried their best to find out the identity of the informant who signed the name Righteous Warrior of the Rising Sun. But nobody could have guessed that it was me who did it." Xie Xian and Qian Yuanshuang were both shocked. Sun Lang reminisced about the past for a moment and asked again, "So, is your uncle still doing it?" "He really doesn't," Xie Xian replied. "I wouldn't dare lie to you, uncle. I've seen it with my own eyes. One time, an old friend came to visit and I served him. The guest invited Uncle in to take the drug, but Uncle waved his hand and refused. He said that he didn't dare to take the drug and that the marshal would beat him. This happened last year." Sun Lang was stunned for a moment and said lightly, "It's rare that he dares to mention me." Xie Xian bowed again. "The marshal's achievements are outstanding and unparalleled in the world. You shouldn't be forgotten by the world." Sun Lang nodded his head vigorously, his spirits rising again. "Yes, when I came to the army, I mainly did a few small things. One of them was to strictly prohibit the use of the 5 minerals powder. Anyone who violates this rule will be killed. I'm very ashamed, but it's just this small task." Why do these words sound so strange? And they seem to be intentional. "Let's not talk about this." Sun Lang waved his hand. "Since you're the descendant of an old friend, sit down." Xie Xian seemed to be well educated. He first thanked the elder for sitting down with the etiquette of a junior. Only then did he dare to move a chair over and sit down. Qian Yuanshuang was very unhappy, but he still moved a chair over and sat down. "Speaking of which, I've also heard of you." Sun Lang smiled. "In the past, when everyone was sitting idly and talking about the young people of each family, your uncle mentioned you. He said that he has a nephew who is the treasure tree of the Xie family. It was third uncle who praised me. I don't deserve it. Xie explained the origin of this title with some embarrassment. There was once a family gathering. Uncle and asked us, the younger generation, how can the younger generation predict the affairs of the world and want to make them better? I was frivolous and replied, for example, I want to make them grow in the court. Thus, third uncle was very happy and praised me as the treasure tree of the Xie family. What the hell? What the hell? Qian Yuan Shuang observed his uncle's expression and saw that his uncle was dumbfounded. Thus, he had an idea of Sun Lang's level of education. When he heard what he said, he immediately said, "Stop pretending. Is this how your family usually talks? Isn't it because Master Xie thinks that it's too troublesome to promote you nephews?" Then he directly said, "What does it have to do with me, whether you have a future or not? Why should I expect you to be successful?" Yu shamelessly smiled and said, "Uncle, doesn't the tree in the family look very scary? If we become successful, won't we also bring honor to the family?" Sun Lang finally understood. He nodded and said, "Xie Baoshu. So that's how it is." He looked at his new nephew and said, "Xie Baoqing. What is that?" Xie felt very awkward. Just as he was thinking of how to tactfully remind him, he heard his uncle continue, "Today you came here to wait for me, right? What's the matter?" Xie heart trembled. He remembered his uncle's instructions before he left. He calmly replied, replying to Uncle, "The first reason is that I want to personally see your face. The second reason is that third uncle has entrusted me with the task. Third uncle told me that once I confirm your identity, I will follow your lead. Third uncle said that the current political situation is delicate and no one dares to act rashly. He has to stay in the Xie family, so he can't come to visit you in person. But please don't worry. You have made great contributions to the country, and your achievements cannot be buried in history. The Xie family will do their best to help you return to the imperial court and reward you according to your contributions. When the time comes, you will lead the officials and fulfill your ambitions. You will continue to be a minister of the same court and help the country." Xie said this and couldn't help but lower his head. He felt an inexplicable pressure that made him, the most outstanding young man in the Xie family, bow his head. He didn't dare to look at Sun Lang's expression. "Is that so? I understand. Xian is very considerate." Sun Lang said slowly, "If you want to make a living, you have to be ruthless, loyal, and have many friends. Now it seems that the benefits of having many friends are reflected." Xie heart suddenly beat wildly. "Third uncle, this Grand Marshal doesn't seem to want to go back and be an official. If we invite him back to the imperial court and give him a promotion, will we really be able to tie him down with riches, official duties, relationships, benefits, and rules? If this plan doesn't succeed, does our Xie family really want to be enemies with such a person? I think I understand why you don't want to be an official." Xie Baoqing felt a little uneasy. Then he heard his uncle say, "Nephew Xie Baoqing, let's not talk about the imperial court first. You've really helped me in my hour of need. Right now, your uncle is in a difficult situation and is lacking manpower. You've really helped me a lot by being willing to follow my lead." Wait a minute, stop. I was just being polite. I just said something nice to draw out my third uncle's words. Why did you take it seriously? Why didn't you follow the rules? How could Sun Lang care about what he thought? Now the situation was urgent. So F*CK, Xie, and F*CK, the imperial court. There were priorities. These trivial matters could be dealt with later. The most important thing now was to let him, Sun Lang, survive in this tragic and cruel Azura battlefield. So he said calmly, "Nephews, I have some private matters to deal with now." Just when Xie was inexplicably dragged into the pirate ship, the Soaring Eagle army also welcomed a special guest. Surrounded by the internal guards, Empress showed a proud smile on her face. She said, "Thank you for your hard work today. I'm here to thank you. Am I not welcome?" The Soaring Eagle army was Lin Daiyu's territory. Lin Daiyu replied coldly, "You're not welcome. Leave." Empress knew her temper, so she laughed and said, "General Lin, you're really good at joking. But I'm the general of Tensei, the commander-in-chief of the army. I have the imperial edict to control your army. So, Even if General Lin doesn't welcome me, theoretically, I can still enter and leave all the military camps at will. Lin Daiyu raised her eyebrows and was about to explode, but Shweb Baochai stopped her. After all, it was not a good thing to fight with Empress in front of so many people. She smiled and said, "Your Highness has been frightened again and again today. You should have a good rest. But you empathize with the soldiers who have made great contributions and didn't hesitate to take risks and face difficulties." A lowly general is really touched. What she meant was, "You've been tortured by my husband like this, but you're still not afraid of death and come to our side. Are you a masochist?" Empress understood Sister Bao's teasing in a roundabout way. She snorted and said lightly, "With General Lin and General Shue's protection, what's there to be afraid of? Do you really think that Sun Lang will come to you? Huh, in your dreams." Shue Baochai's smile didn't change. She stretched out her hand and said, "Your Highness, please." Empress entered the camp. Their eyes met in the air. Shue Baochai snorted coldly in her heart. "You sent yourself to me, so don't blame me." Chapter 550. What? Uncle wants to negotiate as soon as possible? In the main tent of Zhenwu camp, Xiexian's face was filled with excitement. He looked very surprised. He had never thought that Sun Lang would actually reveal his intention to speed up the peace negotiations. In his and his uncle Xie An's expectations, the possibility of this former marshal of the empire being willing to settle things peacefully was almost zero. This was indeed the case. As the Qilin child of the Xie family, Xiexian was deeply valued by his father's generation. Through the family's intelligence network and archives, he also understood some of the inside stories of the past. Whether it was the outcome of the Battle of Great Desolate Mountain or the court's downplaying of the matter afterward, it all explained what had happened to this reincarnated saint who had once surpassed the 6 armies. Xiexian felt that if he were Sun Lang, he would definitely not let things go so easily. In particular, he had personally experienced the terrifying scene of Sun Lang storming the camp. He had swept away thousands of soldiers without killing a single person. He had also protected 21 Western barbarians who did not know martial arts to safely break out of the encirclement. He had never heard of such martial arts. Before this, he did not even dare to dream that someone could do such a thing. Therefore, since Sun Lang had such martial arts, why would he settle things peacefully? He had already displayed terrifying martial arts. This kind of deterrence was even more powerful than wiping out an army. This meant that he could freely enter and leave every corner of the empire, kill anyone he wanted to kill, and do whatever he wanted to do. For example, destroying the administrative system of an area or destroying the command system of an army. Therefore, he had such a great advantage. Why did he want to take the initiative to negotiate? If something was abnormal, then there must be something strange. If something was very difficult to understand, then there must be some inside story. Therefore, while Xiexian was happy, he could not help but be wary. Could it be that he was plotting something? What kind of person was Sun Lang? He could tell what Xiexian was thinking at a glance. He snorted and said proudly, "Are you doubting my loyalty to the Dang Empire? I've never King believed that you could still be loyal. If you were still loyal to the Empire, why would you be able to summon the wind and rain in Mingzhou and finally alert the court and have this imperial envoy trip? If you were loyal to the Empire, why did you just charge in and beat us up?" However, he could only say these words in his heart. If he said them out loud, he was afraid that his uncle would slap him in the face. Xiexian smiled bitterly and said, "Uncle, I really find it hard to understand." Sun Lang nodded and said, "That's right. You young people now, compared to the people of our time, your mindset and fighting spirit are really far apart. If we were red men, then you would be trash. To you young people who love ease and hate hard work, I can only give you 2 words." The Grand Marshal patted the shoulder of the young comrade in front of him and said earnestly, "You have to remember, as long as it's something that benefits the country, you have to work hard regardless of life and death. How can you decide whether to do it or not based on personal gains and losses?" Damn, no wonder he was able to reach such a high position in the court. I've only seen such shamelessness from third uncle who could lie without batting an eyelid. Xie Xian was silent for a moment before he whispered, Uncle, can you tell me the truth? You're so secretive that I'm scared and flustered. Sun Lang said impatiently, I'm already so selfless and devoted to the country, so why are you still thinking about it? You're making the loyal officials bitterly disappointed. Do you have to be like Song Jiang and beat the imperial court's troops into idiots and beat them up 3 times before you know that you need to be recruited? Xie Xian looked at Qian Yuanshuang helplessly, but Nephew Gu turned his head to the side. Nephew Gu had no choice but to believe him for the time being. He smiled bitterly and said, Since Uncle has decided to negotiate peace, it's a great fortune for the country. Is there anything you need us to do? Sun Lang nodded and said, There is indeed something important that I need the 2 of you to help me with. You see, although I'm devoted to the country and have decided to negotiate peace, the imperial court's treacherous officials and imperial relatives will definitely think of ways to obstruct this matter and destroy the peace talks. They will delay and create variables. You have to help me. Xie Xian said with a strange expression, This imperial relative can't be in this camp, right? Sun Lang said with a pained expression, That's right, that woman. She only knows how to make things difficult for me. Jingdong, all day long. She's as bad as old Jiang. I think she just wants to destroy the peace talks and exclude me from the court. She wants to achieve her goal of covering the sky with one hand and controlling the court. Tell me, how can we let her do as she pleases? Xie Xian and Qian Yuanshuang's expressions were very difficult. They nodded repeatedly and said, Yes, yes. Sun Lang continued, If it's a real fight, I'm not afraid of her. But I'm afraid that she'll play dirty with me. So right now, there's a problem that I need to ask my nephews to help me resolve. The 2 looked at each other and thought that he was finally done bragging. They stood up and cupped their hands together. Uncle, please speak. It's like this. Sun Lang looked indignant. Even if that woman is forced to sit down and talk to me, she'll definitely play tricks. For example, when we're negotiating, she'll ask 2 people to stay by my side, which will cause me great psychological pressure and make me panic, Xie Xian frowned. Why was this uncle getting more and more ridiculous? With your ability to come and go freely in the camp, even if there are 100,000 soldiers in front of you, you'll probably be able to talk and laugh without fear. Why would you panic? At this time, Sun Lang continued, It's just such a small matter. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble my 2 nephews to lure the 2 double-flower red staff away when I'm discussing with the princess. Will it work? Qian Yuanshuang's expression had changed, but Xie Xian was so confused that he didn't realize where the problem was. He cupped his hands together and said in a silly manner, Yes. Before he could finish, Qian Yuanshuang immediately raised his big foot and stomped on his foot. Xie Xian almost jumped up from the pain. He shouted angrily, What are you doing? Qian Yuanshuang ignored him and asked Sun Lang in a trembling voice, Uncle, this so-called 2 people with red sticks. Sun Lang shyly turned his head to the side and said shyly, I'm ashamed to say that there are 2 women. One is surnamed Lin, and the other is surnamed Shui. Of course, their martial arts are far inferior to the 2 of you. At this time, even Xie Xian reacted and gasped. Instructor Lin and leader Shui. Sun Lang gave him a thumbs up. Correct. Xie Xian was silent for a moment, then suddenly jumped up and ran for the door. But before he could run 3 steps, he felt his back tighten. Sun Lang's voice came from behind him. Nephew, where are you going? Xie Xian smiled stiffly. My stomach hurts. I need to go to the toilet, Sun Lang smiled and said. If you have the ability, go to the toilet. Then you don't have to do this. Xie Xian was silent for a moment. His face was solemn. And then he breathed in his dantian. Damn it, stop. Sun Lang was shocked. He let go of Xie Xian and took 2 steps back. I didn't expect Xie Baoqing to be so fierce. Nephew Xie said pitifully. Uncle, we can't do this. Qian Yuanshuang, who didn't dare to run, also nodded quickly. Sun Lang sighed. So what can we do? Hey, do you have a way to transfer General Lin and General Shui back? Xie Xian smiled bitterly. Uncle, they already know that you are here. Even if there is an imperial edict to transfer them back, they will resist it. Sun Lang said sadly, "That's true, and that's strange. Why is the marshal so afraid of meeting his wives with General Lin and General Shui's talent? They will not disgrace the marshal." According to third uncle, it was an arranged marriage. Later on, the two generals came to the army and met the marshal. It was a beautiful story. After the marshal died in battle, Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai also decided to keep their chastity for him. Their love was so deep that even a heart of stone would be shaken. Why is the marshal so afraid of them? Xie Xian felt strange and couldn't help but ask, "Uncle, what are you afraid of?" Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "Children shouldn't get involved in adult matters." Xie Xian secretly rolled his eyes. "I even have 2 sons. Maybe you haven't even gone through the wedding ceremony. Who is the child here?" However, he still cupped his hands and said, "So, Marshal, you should go and see the 2 generals first. They should be looking forward to your arrival now," Sun Lang said impatiently. "Nonsense. That woman must have kept them by her side to prevent me from launching a surprise attack. They can't do anything if they go there." As soon as he finished speaking, footsteps came from outside the tent. Someone said, "General, a comrade who claims to be from the Soaring Eagle Army requests to see you. She said that she has a message for Sir Jia. Her military card has been verified. Does the general want to see her?" Sun Lang slid to the side of the wall. Xie Xian and Qian Yuanshuang looked at him strangely. Murmurs came from outside. Then the messenger said, "General, this messenger said that her family's general ordered her not to enter the tent and not to see General Qian. She only needs to leave the message. It doesn't matter if Mr. Jia is here or not. She only needs to leave the message." Qian Yuanshuang was stunned. He looked at Sun Lang. Sun Lang was also a little confused. After hesitating for a moment, he waved his hand and signaled Nephew Gu to listen. Nephew Qian nodded and said loudly, "If you have something to say, say it." Soon, a clear female voice came from outside. It was a female soldier. "General Qian, my family's general said that a noble has come to the Soaring Eagle Cavalry. That's all." "What?" They were confused. The woman outside said, "I've passed the message. If Mr. Jia is not here, please pass the message. I'll take my leave now." The footsteps outside gradually faded away. The 3 men in the tent looked at each other. Xie Xian asked, "Noble, what does that mean?" Sun Lang thought for a moment. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. "Eh." Chapter 551. A nobleman had arrived in the Soaring Eagle troop. Since he didn't elaborate and referred to him as a nobleman, it was almost obvious who this person was. However, what was the saying again? Sun Lang followed his heart all his life. Oh no, he was meticulous. He thought for a while and said to his 2 nephews, "You 2 wait here first." Then he flashed to the door of the tent and looked outside. After he found that everything was normal, he went out and climbed to the top of the tent. He looked around vigilantly. Across the fence, under the light of the fire, he saw a figure leaving. From the back and the style of the armor, it was indeed a female soldier. So he followed her silently. In the tent, Qian Yuanshuang and Xie Xian looked at each other. After they heard the movement on the top of the tent, Xie Xian broke the silence and whispered, "Is henpecked?" Qian Yuanshuang nodded slowly. "Seems like it." The 2 looked at each other for a while and suddenly laughed at the same time. Ha ha! The laughter of these 2 bastards was full of arrogance and pride. There was also a sense of superiority from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if they had found out that the other family's child that their parents always talked about suddenly revealed a weakness that was close to being retarded. This was a kind of pride that said, "You also have such a day." Okay. Don't laugh. Xie Xian took a deep breath and adjusted his mood. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. He pointed at Qian Yuanshuang and said, "Don't King tell on me." Nephew Qian was shocked and immediately retorted, Am I that kind of person?" Xie Xian snorted, "I advise you not to have such thoughts. I will drag you down with me." Qian Yuanshuang said with a sullen face, We have been friends for so many years. Will I betray you? I didn't expect you to think of me like this. It really makes me feel cold. Anyway, you remember it, Xie said lightly. Besides, what are you planning to do? Qian Yuan Shuang was stunned and then said frankly, our Qian family owes him a big favor. Without him, our family will be short-lived ghosts for generations. We have to repay this favor. Xie sighed. If he were to rebel, would you follow him? Qian Yuan Shuang said indifferently. What I think is not important. This is something my father should worry about. If he has decided, then, as his sons, what else can we say? You sure are carefree. You don't have to think too much. Xie was rather envious. He was the son of the Xie family's main branch, and was favored by his third uncle, who was the most promising member of the family. The position of the next patriarch was practically set in stone, and he would even have to participate in some of the family's decisions. He obviously could not be like Qian Yuan Shuang, and only needed to listen to the orders of his father and brother. However, Qian Yuan Shuang smiled and said, since you're in that position, you have to take care of the matters that you need to take care of. How can I let you take all the benefits in this world? That's true, but our uncle seems to want to take all the benefits, Xie said calmly. It's just that this path is a little difficult. Nephew Qian asked, what path? Xie smiled, slowly saying, he seems to want to vent his anger. This is normal. He has done so much for the empire, but he has to give up the bow after the birds are all gone. If it was a normal person, they would not be able to endure such humiliation, much less such an outstanding person. From the looks of it, the one who acted against him is without a doubt the emperor. After all, the great battle has already ended. If such an unparalleled general, whose name is known throughout the 6 armies, were to return to the empire as an official, there would not be any ruler that would be able to sleep soundly. Sigh. Even if that's the case, there are still many suspicious points about the battle of the Great Desolate Mountain. He furrowed his brows and fell into deep thought. This kind of method is still a bit too intense and risky. If we are slightly careless and the news is leaked, it will cause a huge uproar. The current emperor was actually so suspicious of the marshal that he did not hesitate to make a move on the final battlefield. This is really too strange. Could it be that there is some inside story? Qian Yuan Shuang's heart jumped as he heard this. He said helplessly, don't talk to me about this. What did you want to say just now? What path did Uncle choose? Oh, Xie smiled apologetically. He said, as long as he is not an extremely stupid and loyal official, he will definitely not allow himself to be captured without a fight. After escaping, there are only 2 choices. One is to be disheartened and hide his identity. The second is to directly rebel. There's basically no third path, Qian Yuan Shuang asked. Didn't Uncle want to negotiate? Xie shook his head. Now that things have come to this, how can it be resolved peacefully? The emperor once tried to kill the marshal. How can he be at ease letting him take control of the empire? The marshal escaped from the emperor's wrath, so how can he fall for it a second time? The conflict between the two is already irreconcilable. Speaking of which, the emperor is more passive. After all, the marshal has the freedom to choose. He could go to court and become an official, or he can float away. However, the emperor cannot retreat because he is the emperor, because this is his country. He sighed. That is why I said that this matter is very troublesome. The reactions of all sides are too strange. The emperor should know that he and the marshal are as incompatible as fire and water. The best choice would be to immediately use all the power of the country to kill him. However, the court has maintained a strange silence and even tacitly approved of the imperial envoy's trip this time. They are so weak that they don't seem like the Hudu royal family. Nephew Qian rolled his eyes. Can you just say the result? You pig brain. Xie sighed. There should only be one reason why the emperor didn't do what he should have done. That is, for some reason, he has to compromise with the marshal. Qian Yuan Shuang asked curiously. Compromise? Is it because of Uncle's martial arts? I'm afraid not. A sharp light flashed through Xie eyes. How can the emperor bow down to a martial artist? Moreover, people don't cry until they see the coffin. Unless the marshal really kills 1,000,000 soldiers and comes before the emperor and puts a sword on his head, the emperor won't believe that there is someone in this world who can defeat a country with one sword. Even with the example of the Great Bear Mountain, he won't believe it. So what is the reason? Xiaxian said slowly. It should be because he is afraid of a secret in the marshal's heart. The emperor knows this secret. He knows that it really exists and also knows the consequences of it being made public. For an emperor, what he fears is nothing more than losing the throne and losing the country. Therefore, the secret in the marshal's heart is probably enough to shake the foundation of the country and shock the world. That is why the emperor didn't hesitate to compromise for the time being. Nephew Qian's face was full of confusion. He said in a daze, "What secret?" Xiaxian rolled his eyes. How the F***ck would I know? If I knew, I probably wouldn't be in this world anymore. Alas, I'm afraid that in this world, only Uncle has the ability to use this secret. Qian Yuan Shuang blinked. So why the F***ck are you telling me this? Xiaxian sighed. You can only be a general in this lifetime. You don't have any political sense at all. Think about it. Even a young man like me can analyze the existence of this secret. How can our parents, the old officials in the court, not see the emperor's predicament? Nephew Gu nodded and asked, and then? Xiaxian didn't want to ridicule him anymore. He sighed and said, that is why the situation in the court is so delicate. Many people are ready to make a move and are ready to make a bet. They see a chance to suppress the imperial power. After all, since ancient times, the emperors have always said that they are alone because they are indeed alone. Out of all the civil and military officials in the court, not many are on the same side as them. Now that the war is over and the world is at peace, according to the usual practice, the imperial power will definitely suppress the civil power and weaken the military officials who have expanded because of the war. However, who would be willing to give up their wealth and power? But no one is confident in fighting against the emperor. After all, they have a big family and a big business. So at this time, the appearance of the marshal really invigorated their spirits. In terms of meritorious service, his achievements back then were unparalleled and dazzling. In terms of popularity, who knows how many people in the court have been his former subordinates and have received his kindness. Most importantly, he has something that even his majesty is wary of. Although no one knows what it is, as long as it exists, it is enough. At this point, Xiaxian spread out his hands. So, this is simply a leader sent down from the heavens to compete with his majesty. In the next 50 years, whether the imperial power or the prime minister is stronger or weaker will depend on this. Qian Yuan Shuang finally understood and nodded. I see. In other words, if Uncle reveals that you want to return to the court as an official, you will definitely receive a lot of support, right? Yes, even my third uncle is moved. As long as the marshal is willing to follow the rules and solve the problem on the political level, the CF family will definitely do their best to help. And in the court, whether it is his former subordinates or friends, important officials, or even his former enemies, most of them will be happy to see this happen. As long as he is willing to follow the rules and leave the empire some dignity, even if he kicks the emperor into the depths of the palace and makes his decree unable to leave the palace, it will be fine. These words could already be considered disgraceful. If it was heard by others, even if Xiaxian had 8 dog heads, it would not be enough to chop them off. Qian Yuan Shuang listened with fear and looked left and right. Xiaxian did not feel any pressure and continued. But, this is where the problem comes. If Uncle is not willing to solve the problem peacefully and wants to chop off the emperor's head to vent his anger, then what should we do? Or, if the anger in his heart is even greater and he wants to smash the empire into smithereens before he is willing to stop, then what should we do? Qian Yuan Shuang was shocked. No, it can't be. Xiaxian gave him a sidelong glance. You really won't? Fine. Although it had not been more than half a day since he met his uncle, the words and actions of this uncle flashed through Nephew Gu's mind. He was unreasonable, He was flirtatious, he was vengeful for the smallest grievance, and he was temperamental. If this kind of personality was on a normal person, it would be crazy, but on an invincible and peerless expert. Fine, fine. So, I said, this is very troublesome. Xie sighed. Although everyone is happy to weaken the monarchy and protect their wealth and power, they're not very interested in changing dynasties. After all, this means unrest and the possibility of war. Regardless of whether it is considering the interests of the family or the blood shed by the heroes for the peace of the world, most people will not allow a civil war to happen. This means that if Uncle is really determined to make the emperor pay the price, then most of his potential allies in the court will become his enemies. At that time, no one knows what will happen. The marshal, the emperor, and the rest of us. A tripartite balance of power. How the situation will turn out will depend on Uncle alone. Qian Yuan Shuang finally understood the delicate situation under Xie Xian's guidance. There were actually so many things. He said, but didn't Uncle say he wanted to negotiate? Xie Xian covered his face and said, negotiating peacefully is the best result, but I'm worried that he's just trying to trick us. He wants to use the power of his allies in the court to smoothly return to the capital and gain a foothold. After everyone slowly lets down their guard, he suddenly plays a big game for us. Then what should we do? Qian Yuan Shuang said doubtfully, but he seems to be really anxious to negotiate. Xie Xian said thoughtfully, so I think there must be some conspiracy. Nephew Qian gave him a sidelong glance and said, you should speak less. What if Uncle suddenly comes back? Xie Xian said unconcernedly. We are the younger generation. He is someone who does great things. Why would he lower himself to my level? Moreover, although he is smiling on the surface, his heart is clear. I can see that this complicated situation is clear in his heart. Even if he says it, it is not a big deal. Qian Yuan Shuang suddenly said, ah, Uncle, you are back. Xie Xian slipped away and flashed to the wall. Aren't you not afraid? I am learning from Uncle's wonderful footwork just now. Do you dare to say that his lightness skill is not good? At this moment, Sun Lang's voice suddenly came from outside. Lightness skill. The two immediately stood solemnly. Sun Lang opened the tent door and came in. Seeing the two's appearance, he asked curiously, why are you looking so serious? Did you just say something bad about me? The two shook their heads like rattledrums. Sun Lang looked at the two's expressions and shrugged with a smile. I don't care what you think. Sit down. Both of you sit down and give me advice. After sitting down, Sun Lang explained his actions just now. First, I followed the female soldier who delivered the letter. She did not return to the Soaring Eagle cavalry camp, but went straight to the North Wind camp. After returning, she went straight to her tent to rest. General Shui was also not in the North Wind camp's tent. He concluded, so at least this is not a trap set by Shui Baochai. You actually think that your wife will set you up. How guilty are you? The two nephews complained in their hearts. Sun Lang continued, so I went to the middle camp again. Although the internal guard were still strict, there was no sound inside. The guards were also pretending to be serious and vigilant. So, Empress is definitely not in the middle camp. So, she should have gone to the Soaring Eagle cavalry camp. Then, he concluded, so this shouldn't be a trap set up by the Empress. How guilty and suspicious are you? Sun Lang's expression was solemn as he continued. After that, I went around the camp of the Soaring Eagle cavalry. After careful analysis and investigation, I finally came to a conclusion. This time, Sister Bao should be on my side. So, why would you set your wife as the enemy? With a subtle expression, Xie Xian asked, what are you going to do, Uncle? Sun Lang tightened his belt and said seriously, since Sister Bao is on my side, she must have sent someone to deliver this letter to me to fight side by side with me. She definitely wants to invite me over and create a favorable environment for me to have a good talk with the Emperor's concubine. With a wife like this, what else can a husband ask for? This time, even if it's a tiger's den, I have to charge in. Why do I feel that my uncle's emphasis on the two words tiger's den sounds a little wretched and lascivious? Xie felt that this matter was not simple, but Sun Lang seemed to have made up his mind. He waved his hand and said, "Comrades, for the peace of the party and the people in the world, I'm going now." Without waiting for his two nephews to react, Sun Lang ran away like a wisp of smoke. The two of them sat on the chairs and were silent for a moment. Qian Yuanshuang said, "I feel that Uncle's expression is very strange." Xie said casually, "Yes, it's a bit like the expression you showed when we peeped at the maids taking a bath. It's as if you've never seen a woman's breast before." The two of them stood up at the same time and exclaimed, "Taking a bath." A moment later, they slowly sat down again. "We can't go." "Yes. If we see something we shouldn't see, we'll be beaten to death." "Yes, it's none of our business." But then again, has the marshal really never seen a woman's body before? "I don't think so." Pooh. Sun Lang did not hear the bold discussion of the two nephews again. At this moment, he was running toward the camp of the soaring eagle cavalry. Humph. He had seen through everything. Why did that woman go to the camp of the soaring eagle cavalry? It must be that Bao Jiejie and Lin Jiejie weren't happy talking to her, so they left. That woman was afraid that I would suddenly attack her, so she had no choice but to follow them. But this was not important. The cause and effect were not important. What was important was what this woman would do. Women were women, especially beautiful women. Especially beautiful women like her who had been pampered since young. They must love cleanliness and have mysophobia. Even in the military camp, they must take a bath. Also, she was hit by my Avada dehydration curse twice. She must be wet all over, especially that part of her body. It must be a slippery mess, filled with a strange smell, sticky, and very uncomfortable. I'm talking about her armpit. She must take a bath, and she doesn't dare to take a bath alone. She didn't have time to take a bath before, so she must have taken a bath in the camp of the soaring eagle cavalry. Based on the speed of women taking a bath, so she must be taking a bath now. Sun Sheng found a blind spot. Ha. He laughed in his heart as he approached the camp of the soaring eagle cavalry. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.